hearing. He's going to open it up. Yeah. Had a couple of calls. Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who work to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Murphy. Councilor Milne.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Leahy.
Here.
Councilor Laurie.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Vice Chairman Donsa.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
8 present.
As you know, we were notified by the mayor that he would be attending the Eco District Summit in Boston, and that's why he's not here this evening. First item on our agenda is a proclamation. I believe Mr. Wallenstein will receive the proclamation. By his honor, Patrick O. Murphy, Mayor, a proclamation. Whereas the City of Lowell recognizes the importance of protecting and preserving our natural resources and adopting conscientious habits that will improve our daily lives and bring about a cleaner, safer, and more sustainable environment. And whereas, although there has been a significant increase in the amount of recycling in Lowell to date, we must also continue to focus on other initiatives such as waste reduction, composting, the reuse of products and materials, and purchasing recycled products. And whereas state and community leaders can help encourage recycling by informing citizens about local recycling options, they can also help foster greater awareness of the need to expand collections programs by promoting the benefits of recycling investments for businesses. Now, therefore, I, Joe Mendonça, on behalf of Patrick O. Murphy, Mayor of the City of Lowell and the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim Friday, November 15th, 2013, as Lowell Recycles Day, and urge all citizens to promote reducing, reusing, and recycling. Given this 12th day of November, 2013.
Thank you very much for the recognition. It is very important for the city, not just environmentally and health-wise, to divert as much as possible. And this Friday is America Recycles Day. I'm glad that the mayor has proclaimed it Lowell Recycling Day because it will kick off the media campaign for our new recycling program, and you'll hear from me later on about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Williston. Next on the agenda is the minutes of the City Council meeting of November 5th for acceptance.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next, we have communication from the city auditor. We have September and October grants and the October year-to-date budget reports. Council Mercier.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I have a moment of silence after you're through. there.
Sure, I'm sorry. Any motion to accept and place on file?
I had a question on the report.
Okay, Council Leahy, seconded by Council Lori. Council Leahy.
Through you to the auditor. Let's see. The first grant, the Green Communities Grant, does that, are we replacing all the lights throughout the city? But I don't know if that goes to the manager or the auditor, but,
It says just the Sullivan and Wang schools,
oh, all right. So it's all, where the,
and then some retrofitting of streetlights along the Merrimack River Walkway.
okay. So where would that be? Is that Merrimack Street or is that?
The walkway.
Yeah,
The Merrimack River Walkway would be behind the Songus and up behind the Renaissance condominiums.
okay.
Along the-
So those are the lights we're using downtown to replace the,
No, these are the ones that are on the River Walk.
Okay.
That goes, it starts at the Boot building and it goes all the way down to just about to the Lasher, actually.
okay. But, so it says LED retrofit.
Right,
Do we own those street lights down there then
yes,
too?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're lit now, but,
I will say that our long-term plan is to actually involve, we're involved with a grant. We're looking to be involved with a grant with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission to retrofit all of the city's lights to LED.
okay, all
But
right, thanks.
these are just for the walkway. We've already done quite a bit of retrofitting in around this building and some of the areas downtown with the LED lighting as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
I have some questions for the auditor, but I think we should do it after the moment of silence.
We could finish up this item, then we'll go to the moment of silence.
Okay, well, this is another item.
Another one. From the city auditor or something else?
For the auditor, yeah.
To the auditor. All right, well, we go ahead and take care of the moment of silence, and
Yeah.
if there's no objections?
No.
All right. Council Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence and darkened chamber for Judge Cormier, beloved husband of Mary Cormier, with whom he shared 46 years of marriage. Judge graduated from St. John d'Arc Grammar School in 1951 and St. Joseph's Boys High School in 1955. Judge earned a bachelor's degree in business from the Lowell Technological College. Judge proudly served his country in the United States Army in Germany from 1961 to 1963. In his younger years, Judge was a 1961 Golden Gloves 147-pound boxing champion. Furthermore, he was the All-Army 147-pound champion in 1962 and All-Service champion in 1963. For more than 40 years, Judge was a hard-working, dedicated owner and operator of Billerica Furniture Company. Judge was always there to help everyone whenever they needed anything. He was very generous to many different causes and charities. He was very religious and attended Mass daily at St. Margaret's Church in Lowell. Along with his wife Mary, Judge is survived by and will be deeply missed by his 3 daughters, Mary Gail, Colleen, and Carrie Ann, and his 3 grandchildren. We offer our sympathy to the family, as well as acknowledge and offer a moment of silence to all those who died since the last city council meeting. Thank you.
Any others? If everyone would stand, moment of silence in darkened chambers. Returning to the agenda, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Excuse me. It's not on the agenda, but we did receive a report from the auditor tonight on our desks regarding FY13 and notification from Department of Revenue on free cash. And it's good news by far. Almost $4 million in the general fund, 5.5 in the water, 5.8 in sewer, and 1.8 in parking. So it's good news that we have, money left over, if you will, from last year, to almost $15 million. So I want to know if we could just refer this to the Finance Subcommittee, have a discussion with the, what the first, where the sources are. I'm sure it's excess revenue and savings from money not spent, but I think it'd be helpful to have that discussion and forward this to the Finance Subcommittee if that's okay.
Motion to refer to Finance Subcommittee by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Mercier. All those, Councilor Martin.
I'm on the next thing, but I'm in favor of that motion.
Okay. All those in favor of referring to the Finance Subcommittee signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The other reports, I'm sorry, kind of interjected a motion there. We had a motion already to refer, or to read the auditor's reports and accept and place on file. Already second by Councilor Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Councilor Martin.
Yes, I would request the suspension of the rules to take number 8 out of order, traffic ordinance.
All right, motion to take an item out of order by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Lori, to take up item 8, which is the 60-day trial, various traffic changes. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Item number 8. In City Council, pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Second reading by title. In City Council, pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this?
No.
No. Motion to motion to accept by Councilor Mercer. No?
I just have a question.
Sure.
There's nobody here to speak on it. Why do we even take it out of order? What was the point? We don't have like 20 people speaking on it. What was the necessity to do that?
I think there, as the clerk explained to me, I think there are people here to answer questions if there were questions. These are related to traffic improvements at the UMass Lowell crossing in the area of the new bridge. So I think there are people here to speak if there are questions, but there's no formal presentation. So instead of leaving people here for an hour and a half at the conclusion of the public hearing and there'd be no questions, that was the reason to move it up.
Councilor Leahy.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I had a question, I don't know if it's through the manager, for the changes on Fletcher Street. I can see the change of the directions for Dane Street and Whiting Street, but why no parking on Fletcher Street? Because when I go by there seems to be a lot of cars parked there, especially overnight, so I'm concerned about where people are gonna park at night and
Sure. We'll have Mr.
parking
Eby.
during the day for the home across the street.
Okay. Mr. Eby.
Mr. Evie?
Yes, the reason for the no parking on Fletcher Street was in order to accommodate the traffic turning off of Fletcher onto Whiting Street, a left turn lane is needed on Fletcher Street. And in order to provide that left turn lane, you need to restripe Fletcher Street and restrict the parking on both sides. There's only enough room curb to curb for one travel lane in each direction and a left turn lane. So if we're going to reverse the flow to allow traffic off of Fletcher onto Whiting to get to the parking lot, you need to have a left turn lane on Fletcher Street. And in order to provide that left turn lane, you need to prohibit parking during the times when that left turn lane is needed.
I read the report, but, I mean, when I go by there in the morning, there's a lot of overnight parking. So what are we gonna do with those cars? And then what about the house across the street? I can't think of the name off the top of my head, the River,
River Valley.
where are they gonna park?
That's something we've been working on with the university. We've asked them to identify if there's parking overnight, document it and see how much parking there is when it's needed. Perhaps, if there is a need for parking, we could put restrictions on the time of day that the parking is in place, allow the parking to be overnight on weekends, and prohibit it during the day when the left turn are being made into the parking lot to allow the traffic to get through the bypass. That's something they haven't given us all the information we're looking for yet.
Okay, well, I mean, it's hard to vote on this tonight if, it probably affects, it's gotta be about 25 cars there, I would think. So, I don't know, I'd like to have some more answers on that one before. I could see reversing the traffic on the one-way streets, but, I'd like to know, who's parking there and who it's gonna affect. I don't know if there's anybody here from the neighborhood, but, okay.
This is a 60-day trial order, but I do need a motion either way to proceed. Do I have a motion?
Motion to,
Okay, motion to accept for the moment by Counsel Leahy, seconded by Counsel Lori, just for discussion.
okay.
Counsel Lori.
I have some questions myself. We have a lot of businesses in that area. My wife and I belong to a church there, St. George's Antiochian Church. It's an Orthodox church, and we park on the street. I know there's several funeral homes in that area. I see one here tonight. They probably are parking on that street. In all due respect to the university, that parking lot's been there for 40, 50 years, and it was never, as far as I know, there was never a gate from Fletcher Street to come in. It was always a Salem Street access. So I'm concerned about the traffic in the neighborhood. I'm concerned about traffic on Whiting Street. Last year, I know with the neighborhood group, we just opened a community garden in that area, and I don't know where they're parking. As far as I know, members of that community group were parking on Whiting Street. There's several homes on that street. There's several homes on Dane Street. So I have a lot of concerns before we go any further with this. You're really going to inconvenience quite a bit of a neighborhood to change that traffic flow. And we just put a set of lights at the corner of Pawtucket and Fletcher to really streamline the traffic over to that bridge. So I do have a lot of questions myself. Thank you.
Counsel Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Is there an urgency to vote this up or down today? What is there a, because I'm hearing so much talk about it right now, and I didn't realize that, but there are businesses, and perhaps we should refer this to a subcommittee to address all the concerns that people have, because it seems like there's more questions than anything else, and I don't know if there's an urgent need to vote for this evening. People are here, and there's a lot of people that probably want to talk about it, and they're not actually coming up to the podium, and I see a need there because there's doubt here, and I don't want to vote for something that people are doubtful of. Where's the parking for the River Valley Nursing Home? Where's the parking for St. George's Antiochian Church? Where is it? And I'm not against this move to turn this traffic pattern around, but there's people here that I didn't realize this concern here, so I'm not willing to support this vote right now tonight. Is there a need to have a discussion through a subcommittee meeting very quickly, soon, maybe next week? I don't know. Would you want to do that? And then people can discuss it, and the traffic supervisor can address it further. Is there a need here to do that?
Council Mercer and fellow members, the chair of the action group has indicated he would like to speak, so I don't know if anyone wants to suspend the rules to allow that, or Council Leahy. Motion to suspend the rules, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Mr. Willett.
Thank you very much. My name is David Willett, 113 Cabot Street, president, founder of Acre Action, the neighborhood group. And the only thing that I really concerned with on this is that there was absolutely no communication with the neighborhood group on this. We weren't aware of it till all of a sudden it was ready to come to the council communication, which was really aggravating that, we've been around and we've been dealing with UMass Lowell, and all of a sudden they're changing a whole traffic pattern, taking parking away from St. George's Church, Merrimack Valley River House, O'Donnell Funeral Parlor, all the tenants in the area, and we weren't even brought to the table to have a discussion, which would have made this go a lot smoother if we would have discussed this out of the council chambers first, ironed out a lot of the issues, and then we could have reached an easier end. But one good thing on this is that they're only asking for a 60-day trial, so the rest of the neighborhood can find out about this and have some say in it. And the other thing I'm looking to is that if they do go along with this, that with that no parking and everything else for the businesses, for the community, that at least that there'd be no parking from maybe 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, so that the neighborhood and the people could still have their parking at nights and weekends. And that's pretty much, there'll be more to it, but I would just hope that it either gets held off or we get a chance to talk about it instead of it just going right through, or we'll talk about it at the end of the 60-day trial. Thank you very much for your time.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Olet is correct. I mean, when you have something like this come before the council or any board for that matters, at least you communicate with the resident, with the neighborhood group. Even just a 60-day trial still have some impact on them. It's not even their fault. Communication is important. I think, council raised issues whether or not there was an alternative parking for resident at this time. There doesn't seem to be an answer to that. Let's say, let's give it a 60-day trial, and whatever little impact that it will have on you, the resident, so be it. You can come back 60 days and talk about it. No, that's not acceptable. There ought to be some discussion, some dialogue between the proposer, the petitioner, and the resident in this case. I concur with the fellow council that this ought to be a way to table it, postpone it, whatever, and have some sort of bring the two parties to the table and to see whether or not there's alternative parking for residents, even with a 60-day trial. Thank you.
It seems like there's some people ready to present and answer questions. Are there any objections to them doing that? Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would suggest is if it is going to be referred to a subcommittee, then why don't we just do that now and let the subcommittee hear the presentation and just have them report back to the council in 2 weeks? Maybe that's a better way to handle it, rather than to do a presentation now, and then if we're ultimately going to send it to subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, second.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilor Kennedy,
Second.
substitute motion to send the item to any particular subcommittee meeting, neighborhoods,
Neighborhood and traffic.
neighborhood subcommittee.
Or is there a traffic? Do we have a?
No, I think it's
Neighborhood
neighborhood.
and traffic.
Neighborhoods is fine.
All right. And seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
That's fine.
Okay. Councilor Mercer.
This should have been done beforehand. This isn't the venue for this to be discussed right here. The neighbors, the abutters, the businesses, they should have been known before the 11th hour to vote on this now. This is very unfair to this council to shove this at us and have not had the courtesy to address the businesses that it affects. That's my opinion right here.
Well,
mind
it's
if
been
I-
referred to a subcommittee, so
Okay.
I'm sorry.
On behalf of the university, I'd like to apologize for the inconvenience. We've worked very closely with the city all through this process, trying to find a solution that minimized the impact to the neighbors. So I'm actually pleased that it's going to a subcommittee, that we can sit down and work with the neighbors to come up with a solution. This certainly was not our intent to force feed it to anyone.
I'm sure you'll be notified of the subcommittee hearing date.
Well, the neighbors are the city. This is your city, right here.
And next item on the agenda, city manager's portion, communication from the city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any questions? Councilor Mercier.
Yes, I have some issues on this. I just wanted to say that the City of Lights, we got in our packet some information about the City of Lights Parade, would be on Saturday, November 30th, and to honor the resiliency of the human spirit, we will be welcoming Police Commissioner Ed Davis to be with us. So I just wanted to make note of that for the public, to write that down on their calendar for Saturday, November 30th. And I want to say that I can be the first to complain when there's a situation that needs to be corrected, but I want to be the first to say that I'm grateful that it was corrected. And I asked for some the Lowell Plans presentation because I thought it was that important, and I wanted to have a copy of it. And it was so small we couldn't read it, but I complained a little bit, and it looks so beautiful. I just wanted to thank Adam Bakey for correcting that situation. So these are the two things I wanted to discuss. Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
Mr. White Chair, is it possible for me to, is it okay for me to comment on the Crime Stopper Boost reward as part of the manager report?
It is part of the manager section, yes.
Thank you, sir. Last week, the acting superintendent, Friedel, actually met with the neighborhood from the Asian community. She, seek out us, the community, and we did have some discussion around the recent shooting on Shaw Street, on Adam and Bellevue, actually the last one on Shaw Street. Apparently, the victim or the witness in all these cases didn't want to come forward. So there was a discussion around a tip around anonymous call and all that. So it's a way to reach out to the community and to either through radio or TV. And the acting superintendent was very, responsive and was very receptive actually to all the suggestions. And I think, she's actually sent out her team to work with the youth group to trying to reach out to the victim and all those home, and using the idea that this is all our children being impacted by this. A lot of all this incident was involving the kid was almost hit, especially on Shaw Street. She has also mentions that the Crime Stopper has upped their reward, which is a good thing for not only for the recent shooting from 1,000 to 3,000, but also the unsolved murder cases, homicide case on Middlesex Street, which is a great thing. I think we did suggest to her to continue the dialogue with the area that basically impacted by all this shooting, which is the Low Highland and the Acres, and she's planned to do just that. And the community also thank her for the visibility of the foot patrol officers up till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, Joe, which is very good in terms of not only deterring this drive-by shooting, fortunately, no one, hit really, but also help curb what do you call it, the prostitute on Middlesex Street. So I just want to comment on the superintendent, the acting superintendent effort in trying to, reach out to the community. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I just wanted to thank Councilor Noon for flagging this part of the report. We've obviously done some publicity on this, but the Crime Stoppers, we reached out to Crime Stoppers as part of the overall effort to gain information, and Mr. Marchand is my contact with the Crime Stoppers group, and they met and did, as Councilor Noon indicate, raise a reward for the information leading to the arrest in the case of the homicide on Middlesex Street and the shootings that have taken place in several locations there. So I just wanted to thank the Crime Stoppers and all of the people that support the Crime Stoppers program, and again, thank Councilor Noon for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Through you to the manager, I just had a couple of questions on a couple of motions by the mayor. One had to do with the LED lights, and I just wanted to ask again that the lights from High Street down to the Utopia Real Estate, they're still out. So that whole side of the street's dark tonight, so
Right.
you gotta look at that. and
Right, I think
see-
we're having some issues with National Grid with some of the
Okay.
underground conduit there, but we are following up on that. We have a couple locations in the city like that there's been some underground issues, but we'll get
Okay.
some
Thank you.
information.
And then the other question was on his motion for the request that you draft zoning change to reduce minimum parking requirements. Would that mean that when certain projects come online, would that mean that, I hope we're not going to look at maybe overcrowding projects if we're reducing the parking?
Right.
That doesn't mean that we may allow more units, say, on different proposals. I just want to make sure that, that's not what we're doing, right?
Well, that is the effect of, Mr. Bakey.
Because I think in some neighborhoods, we don't want to overcrowd.
It won't be in every, I'll let Mr.
Okay.
Bakey.
Yeah, I believe in this particular case, the mayor's request was for commercial and non-residential projects specifically, in places where the parking requirements may exceed the actual parking demand because the location is adequately served by other transportation options. In some cases, it may be people walking, in other cases, it may be taking public transit or other reasons. And if it can be shown that there indeed is surplus parking, then there is no necessity to require commercial property owners to build unnecessary extra parking, which has stormwater implications and so forth. This is not about residential development at all, is my understanding.
Because it didn't look like that in the request.
I mean, we don't know exactly what I can't speak exactly for the mayor, but our interpretation of what he was asking for was really around commercial projects.
All right, because again, I didn't see any of that in this memo, so I just want to make sure that, as new residential projects come online, that we're not overcrowding them, because we feel people don't need a car or a parking spot, so, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion to place on file. We already have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Being after 7 o'clock, Mr. Manager, you have something?
I recommend that this take place after the public hearings, but I just noticed that in the communication section, we do have Gunther Wellenstein on to give a report on the implementation of the new solid waste program. So but I think that should take place after the public hearings.
Very good. I'll be back to you then. All right. First public hearing regarding the panhandling ordinance. In City Council, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 222, entitled Peace and Good Order, by adding section 222.15 entitled Panhandling in the Downtown Lowell Historic District. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor say aye, any opposed say nay. Second reading by title. Well, actually, this is a second reading, so we're all set. We're now going to open a public hearing to anyone who wishes to speak in favor. Mr. Belanger.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Manager, and members of the council. My name is Corey Belanger. I'm a businessman at Major's Pub at 197 Market Street, and I've been in business in the downtown for 12 years. And I do want to commend Council Laurie in this motion. It's not an easy one. It's one with several challenges where we have individuals here at one end who are, in need, but at the same time, we have businesses and residents that are really inconvenienced here, to say the least. So thank you, Mr. Laurie. Businesses, we need you. Thank you very much. But talking from experience here, I'm downtown several hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay, and this problem is out of control. I'm sorry to say, I don't know how else to say it, okay? We are being approached, whether it's myself, a customer, a fellow business individual around me. You can't even get to the bank or the post office. It's very rarely you get to a destination that's a block or two away without being confronted. That's how bad it is. It's to the point where they're approaching vehicles on either side, holding up traffic. I've seen this time and time again. This is a serious, serious problem. Our businesses, our customers, our residents, our visitors are simply horrified at this, how bad the problem has gotten. And at a time where, economically things aren't so well to begin with, this is just one more thing against all of us that is unnecessary. Now, I can't say how many times in the course of the day I see, these able-bodied individuals confronting people, asking for money. And it's the same faces in many, many cases. This has begun to become careers, I'm sorry to say, for some of these individuals. Now, I know it's a city, we have social services, and I understand that. But I think we're victimized in that sense where they are simply hitting the streets, hitting the downtown during the day, approaching anybody and everybody in a very aggressive manner in some cases too. I've heard it and I've seen it. So this is a problem, and I think we have a good strategy here to go about this to help curb the situation, that this will not be tolerated in downtown Lowell. We are trying to rebuild our downtown here and make it a destination, and this situation is not helping us, I can tell you firsthand. So I understand it's not an easy one, but I think with the strategy that we have here in place, we'll put in place the authority to move these individuals along and show them they're not welcome here under doing this kind of act. So I don't condone it, and I know I don't know who's here for downtown businesses, but everybody is fed up with the situation. So I do hope this council acts on it, and I appreciate you supporting this motion. Thank you very much.
All right, just to let everyone know, we have a 5-minute rule, so 5-minute maximum, which nobody's exceeded yet, but just so you know. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Speaking in favor. Seeing now none, we'll now move to the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. Please state your name and address for the record.
Melbourne Richard Moran Jr., 359 Beacon Street. So I read through this ordinance today, and I've been reading about it in the Lowell Sun, and when you guys were on the election trail, I noticed some comments, but I just wanted to voice my concern about the ordinance. I should start off 5th generation Lowell resident, born and raised in Lowell Public Schools, Middlesex Community College. UMass Lowell, now I'm at Boston University as a master's student in social work. And as a social work student, I have a set of values that this ordinance clearly contradicts. It's socioeconomic discrimination, and it continues with our culture's acceptance of institutionalized racism. We see this problem as the poor begging, and not wanting to see it anymore, so we send them away with a $50 fine that they can't afford to pay. We want to respect the fact that tourists are coming to the city. I've seen a lot of changes since I've been a kid, and definitely the city has changed for the good, but telling the poor they have to leave because the tourists don't want to see them begging for money because they have nowhere else to get income from because of their particular circumstance is not the right way to go about this ordinance. I would like to see in the ordinance something that refers, have a police officer or anyone or social service agencies in the city refer clients, these potential clients, to social service agencies to get them the help they need, not to send them away with a $50 fine and continue this just blatant discrimination towards them. They're human beings. They may not have the same privilege as other voters in the city, but they deserve our respect. That's all I have.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? State your name and address for the record, please.
Dina Sow, 84 Browning Road. I would ask you to vote against this because hiding the problem of poverty does not make it disappear. And I'm not saying that the man who first testified that his experience isn't true, but I personally have never been, no one has ever asked me for money in the historic period, and I spend a lot of time in downtown Lowell. So while it, I'm sure, does occur, I wouldn't classify it as a huge problem by any means. There is a reason that many large cities allow panhandling, and that's because it is the morally right thing to do, to not turn your backs on your most impoverished citizens. If this is a proposal that you agree with, I would suggest that maybe you consider voting against it now and bringing it up again later, sometime in the future when the economy isn't so bad. I personally am a registered nurse looking for a job, and while I don't need to panhandle, it hasn't come to that. I can only imagine someone without a degree, the struggles they're going through right now. So perhaps this is something better put off till the future. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak in opposition? State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Daniel Silk. I was a registered voter in Tewksbury, and I'm not registered here in Lowell. I was born in Lowell, at Lowell General, a long time ago. This is a tough issue. I've been, it's a tough call, If you want my opinion, I'll give it right now, if that's all right. And I think maybe there's no reason for aggression, of course. If people are aggressive, then I'm against, I vote no. But I mean, I don't, in the paper, I read the Lowell Sun, and it talks about First Amendment rights. And like this young lady, every major city, the same stuff going on everywhere, Boston, everywhere in the Northeast. I haven't been out of the Northeast in a few years, but it's everywhere. But the way I see it, this is just my opinion, I don't see a problem with non-aggression. As far as charitable, it's up to people, but I don't see any, if people are going to be aggressive about it, then I'm with the ordinance being put in place. But as far as, First Amendment rights and the economy the way it is, it's a tough call. But there's no reason for people to push their will on people that are trying to actually put money into the economy in the city here. Every town and city needs money, to, operate the city and towns, and the economy as far as it is, to push people away and businesses have to suffer for it. I'm with the ordinance, but otherwise, I don't think people should be handed a $50 fine. I think there's a better way to do it than punish people as far as, But as far as aggression and violence, I'm against it. Any kind of form of people pushing their will on other people, I'm against it. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Name and address for the record, please.
My name's Kenneth McLaughlin. I'm at 205, 209 Middlesex Street. I've been a long-time Lowell resident. I'm actually homeless now, and I go through it day to day. You know, I do have to panhandle sometimes, but when I'm out panhandling, I'm very polite about it. Along with all the other people I see, they're always very polite about it. I've never actually seen hostility come from the panhandler themselves. The hostility that I've always seen comes from sometimes the common person that you ask for money. You know, I've been assaulted just because someone's having a bad day, and, you know, that's not right. And for someone to get a $50 fine or even arrested for panhandling, I don't think that's right at all. Like I said, I'm disabled, and I've been awaiting Social Security for a while. I have no way of source of income. I can't work, and I really just don't think it's fair to the people of the city if you were to put a $50 fine out there and criminalize panhandling. That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? And name and address for the record, please.
My name is Richard Edwards. I'm currently homeless. I've been a long-time Lowell resident. I just want to say that this panhandling issue shouldn't be passed because I've never experienced anybody coming up to me in any forms of violence. I was also arrested one time for pushing an empty shopping cart to go out and pick up cans to make some money. When I got arrested, I was brought to the police station. I was booked, processed, and I was brought to in front of the judge. And I, of course, not having a job or no source of income, I applied for to get a public defender. Needless to say, I was denied from the judge, and I was told by the judge to have my own personal lawyer or go in to defend the case by myself. And I didn't have the knowledge to go in and defend the case by myself. Needless to say, I ended up getting a $200 fine or 20 hours of community service, which I took the 20 hours community service because, like I said, I had no source of income. And as far as this panhandling, I've never gone up myself and approached anybody to ask them for money, and I've never seen any type of violence. You know, people going up and say, give me $1 or 50 cents, and I've never seen anybody, just because they couldn't get it, go up and say, I'm gonna, do something about it. And I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Robert L. Adham, 49 Dublin Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. I'm a person, I've been on both sides of I've been, I used to own 3 Subway restaurants. I always had money at one point. And, on this end of it, I'm actually at the lowest point financially that I've ever been in. Some of my own decisions, some not. However, I haven't been on the street asking for money. However, my heart has changed toward people who do because I'm surrounded by them all the time now. People who are homeless, people who, they live in an impoverished situation, and I get to know them. I used to be the person that would come out of a pub and, maybe I got approached by somebody, I would tell them, go get a job, go do something. A lot of these people do try to get jobs. It's hard. It's really hard, especially in such a small, confined area that's secluded away. It's not the immediate Boston area. Around Boston, it's easy because everything's close-knit. Here, everything's kind of secluded. So we take these prospects and you got to take them into consideration. Sometimes they're drunk. Well, how would you like it being on the street all the time and never knowing where you're going to get anything? So I'm sorry that a lot of people are inconvenienced by someone coming up and asking them for a little change. I'm really sorry for that. But, you got to put yourself in that position as well. As far as being aggressive is concerned, I haven't experienced that myself, but it's also, what you consider aggressive. If it, basically inconveniences you and you don't like what you see in your face, sorry about that, Chip in and help out in society. That's what I have to say, as far as that's concerned. Get to know some of these people. Ask them, what is it that, you're really after, Sometimes it's not 50 cents. Sometimes, they want something to eat. Get them something to eat. It's okay, I guess that's all I got to say on this issue. God bless you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Robin Brown. I live at 21 Fremont Street. Born and raised in Lowell. Went to school in Lowell and worked all my life in Lowell, and also served in the United States Navy. I'm in opposition of this for many reasons. In this time, this week alone, the government has cut SNAP benefits, food stamp benefits for 43 million individuals just this week. Imagine when a family of 4 has to get cut $36 per month. How are they going to be able to, feed their families? And some individuals that are down on their luck, I see it as some type of discrimination. They're individuals and they're down on their luck. Does that mean they can't panhandle? What about the individuals that are firefighters that are putting the boot out there on the bridge, 2 or 3 times a year, begging for money for a cause? What's the difference between a homeless individual or someone who's down on their luck asking for a little help? Yes, if they're aggressive, there should be a consequence, absolutely. But if they're asking nicely, hey, do you have any spare change? There's a whole initiative called Spare Change in the state of Massachusetts. Why can't we implement that here in Lowell to help feed some of the hungry and the homeless? Also, I look at a lot of the individuals. I worked in the homeless shelter for many years, and a lot of those individuals in the homeless shelter have degrees, can't find jobs, down on their luck. Does that make them less human? Does that make them aggressive? If they're looking for a meal and they need to help their family member, I don't see this as something that is resolved by arresting and giving them a $50 fine. Why can't the police officer ask if they see someone being aggressive to move along, or give them a verbal warning and say that's not tolerated in the city? And let's look at an initiative, not a punishment because we're down on our luck. Let's look at how we can find solutions to the problem and not just push people along. And yes, I understand the economy downtown. Lowell's come a long way with the whole jam plan, and there's millions and millions of dollars being dumped in the city. But just because there's millions of dollars being dumped in the city doesn't mean we should push along the ones that are down on their luck. So I'm definitely in opposition to this. I'm definitely willing to sit down with the city council and have a few panhandlers come and talk what it's like to have to go out there and panhandle and put their pride in their back pocket and ask for help. It's the hardest thing you have to do, is to be able to ask for help, especially when you're down on your luck. And to punish someone for asking for help and money to get a meal or to put a coat on your back, I think that's totally inhumane. And I think we should all sit down as human beings since the holidays are coming. Most people are in the giving spirit. I think the city council should allow us to bring a bunch of panhandlers and sit down and talk to them, see why they're down on their luck. How can we help them instead of punishing them? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Aurora Erickson. I live at 100 Mass Mills Drive. Obviously, I'm a downtown resident. I agree with the goals of this ordinance, making visitors feel safe while downtown. However, I have some real questions and concerns about the ordinance. I'm wondering what happens if the perpetrator cannot or will not pay the $50 fine. I'm wondering if this is going to lead to people getting thrown in jail. If so, I would argue that the criminal justice system is not the right place to address their issues. They won't get the services they need, and it will be harder for them to reintegrate into society. I don't want to put a roadblock in people's way if there are people who are going to be able to get back on their feet. Additionally, I'm worried about a lack of commitment to outreach about the law and alternative options to panhandlers. I'm worried that the law could create a larger gulf between police and social services and the homeless population. I don't want people who are homeless to feel like they need to be afraid of the police, they need to be hiding from the police. I think that's the last thing we want, because those are people who really need to be able to reach out. I also want to know how this fits into the comprehensive strategy of creating better relations between the police and the population they must work with. Finally, I worry it'll just push the problem to other areas of the city without addressing the root issues. I recognize that not all panhandlers are part of the homeless population, and not all are from Lowell, and they ask you for money for a wide variety of purposes, not all of which we'd really like to support. However, I hope that the city talks with service providers, the homeless population, and others to create a more comprehensive and just strategy to make people feel safe downtown rather than just sweeping the problem under the rug. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Troy Betancourt. My address is 1955 Middlesex Street, Riverside Townhouses. It's good to see you, Vice Chair Mendonça, tonight. I'm here in opposition of this ordinance for several different reasons. I have several different concerns. You heard directly from folks who admit to be out there panhandling and who are in need. And you heard from them directly that when they cross a line, or if an individual, for whatever reason, crosses a line and becomes aggressive, that becomes a different kind of matter. It's really not a panhandling matter. So I think there's some confusion around what this ordinance really is about. Part of it is about a nuisance, as if homeless people and the needy and the impoverished in the city are gnats to be swatted away or mosquitoes to be squashed, and that is just inhumane. To criminalize poverty, it's not what I think the city of Lowell is about. I grew up here in Belvedere on River Road at the bottom of Burnham and in between Raven. And I left and I came back and I do work in social work and I run a small housing program here in Lowell, and I see the success stories that we have. I'm also the acting chair for the city's Hunger Homeless Commission, and I've reached out several times since the summer to the mayor's office as well as the city council to try to get you folks involved because I knew these issues were coming up and I've heard nothing. And I really need people to know that I've reached out for you guys to review our charter and to appoint designees from both the mayor's office, city manager's office, and the city council to work with us, because there are human service organizations that are not funded through the city of Lowell, that are statewide, whether it's Justice Resource Institute in Boston, the Institute of Health and Recovery, South Bay Mental Health, VinFen, Bridgewell, it doesn't matter, but we're here, and we're serving this population. Some of the other things I wanted to bring up, you heard Mr. Richard talk about how he was arrested with a shopping cart, and how that was a $250. This man has a felony charge now on his record because of that. And I wanted to show you something, just so you are very clear of what is happening in your city, our city, my city. I took this picture today, this afternoon, ironically enough. It's a picture of a little old Asian woman with a cart full of bottles and cans. Are we going to now arrest her and fine her $250? I want you to review this. I took this today. You'll recognize the street. It's on the corner of Middlesex and Central. The other thing I want to point out, which I think is also very important and very interesting to me, that he was arrested for having a shopping cart that he found on the side of the road. Like I said, I live on Middlesex Street near Wood Street Plaza. There are a lot of apartment buildings before you get to my townhouse complex, right? There are shopping carts left and right. People come out of Market Basket because they don't have a car and they don't have transportation, so therefore they bring the groceries in these carts. I had the privilege and the honor of going to a fundraiser at Western Ave Studios this weekend for the Miracle Providers of New England. As soon as I walked into the vestibule, I want to show you what I saw. I saw shopping carts, multiple shopping carts with signs placed by the artists basically saying, please leave them in the vestibule. They use them to go up and down the elevators, right? So are we going to then start fining the artists of Western Ave Studios? Are we going to be arresting them and fining them? Where is the adequacy in this? How are you going to really do this? My office is on the corner of Central Street and Market Street, right above Wings. Ironically enough, when I came downstairs today, some kid hit me up for a cigarette. Can I just tell you, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. working downtown, I cringe at the idea of walking up to Dunkin' Donuts or to go to Kennedy's to buy a pack of cigarettes. Yes, I smoke, unfortunately, I'll admit to that. And I'm not afraid of the homeless population that are going to come and accost me and bug me for cigarettes or $1. I'm afraid of the high school kids that all collectively gather in front of Kennedy's, asking me for cigarettes, asking me for $1. It's a gang of adolescent boys. It's not the folks you see here today. Any of the people that you see here today, these aren't the individuals that are breaking into cars in Pawtuckettville or breaking into homes in the Highlands. So what kind of crime are they really committing? I'm asking you to consider. And then the other thing, my last point in my closing, You know, cities across the nation have tried to pass ordinances like this, whether it was in Virginia, most recently turned down by the ACLU, they fought it for freedom of speech, Arizona, Michigan. Is this really a good use of our money? Is this really a good use of our money? Do our police officers really need to be out there policing panhandlers and poor people? Now, if it crosses a line, that's one thing, but we have laws in place for that. We don't need to create more. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Council Martin.
I move to approve the ordinance.
Motion to approve by Council Martin, seconded by Council Laurie. Any discussion? Council Mercier.
I just have one comment, and it breaks my heart to know that there are people out there that have a need to ask for money. I understand how difficult that could be, but I do understand how difficult it is for businesses to put their blood, sweat, and tears and their money and try to make it a go of it, and have someone like me try to patronize their business only to be inundated with people begging for money, and I won't go there anymore because your rights end when they violate mine. That's all I have to say.
Council Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. There's a lot of unanswered questions here tonight. First, the fine, the $50 fine. What happened when they can't pay the fine? Are they going to jail? Who's going to pay for that? We, taxpayer. Then they come back out. How are they going to find a job when they have a record? I think the underlying issues we really don't address, that is poverty. There are those among us, they may not be our family, but they are part of our community who need help. Who need help if we have some compassion. They ask for money, we don't give them. If they're being aggressive, then the speaker before me spoke of, there's a law for that. There's a law for that, for those aggressor, panhandler. I'm not sure having this ordinance for the downtown Lowell Historical District is going to address the problem. What we are doing simply to kick the can down the road. Centerville, Pawtuckaville, Lower Highland. I see it at Lower Highland. I ran into them all the time. But I have yet to run into one that aggressor. If they ask for money, I'll give it to them. Because that could have been me. That could have been me. 30 plus years ago, I'd be excited for someone to hand me $1. Now, 30 years later, I'm still the same person, carry the same value. My fellow citizen. I'm not any better than them. Yes, I have a job, I have a family. They're under bad luck. They need help. If we don't give them, that's our prerogative. But I can tell you, the Lower Highland neighborhood, if you ever one day pretend to be a panhandler, stood in front of no store, grocery store, they give you money. Because that could have been them. They know where they came from. They know that these people don't chose to be panhandler. Not all of them. Maybe a few, but painting things in one brush is not going to solve the problem. Yes, we may get rid of them downtown Lowell Historical District, but the business there any different than the business in the Lower Highland? the Bridge Street Centerville or the Pawtuckville, they have business. They are all business. They pay tax to the city. But this certainly is not going to address the problem. It's going to kick them to the Highland, to the Centerville, to the Pawtuckville. You know what? At least I have some decency and compassion left. I can't support this ordinance. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I think what we're trying to address with this ordinance is just to make sure that the downtown area is safe, that people aren't harassed every time they go downtown. We're not saying that we're not compassionate. There are city services in the city that help these people if you're down on your luck. There's places where you can get a meal. But to say that we're not compassionate, that's not the issue here. To say that we're not willing to help people in the city of Lowell, that's not the issue here. There are a lot of people that probably panhandle that don't bother anybody. But there's a large number of people lately that are being aggressive, and they intimidate people, and people don't want to come downtown. And that's an issue. So whether or not this is the right answer, the answer right now is to ask people or to tell them that you can't beg for money in the downtown area. And whether it pushes them out of the downtown or not, that's to be seen. You know, I'm sure that we have agencies in the city, and as we ask people to move along, we could refer them to these sites to get help. But to say that we're not compassionate and we don't help out our fellow citizens is wrong, because we do a lot in the city of Lowell. And this ordinance is just to move people along in the downtown area, help make a safer environment, help out the businesses, and make people feel more safe and more comfortable coming downtown. So that's what the issue is. And it's not to say that we don't respect people and we're not willing to lend a hand, because we are. And we all know that there's probably 10% of the panhandlers that ruin it for everybody. And whether they're dependent on drugs or alcohol or whatever, they're the ones that intimidate and scare people away from downtown. And that's what this is about. And it's giving the police the tools to do their job. One speaker spoke about someone being arrested for carrying a shopping cart. I don't know what that's about. I mean, obviously that was wrong. There's got to be more to the story than that. And if there isn't, then it was a big misjustice there. That was wrong for arresting somebody for a shopping cart. So I don't know what happened with that. But right now, I think what we're asked to do is to look at this ordinance and see if what the purpose is to help out the downtown area businesses, people visiting, and the tourism. Thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you. You know, a lot of talk has been made on this ordinance about the $50, and I'm not an attorney, but if you're going to have an ordinance or a law, you got to have penalties, I imagine, and one would be the $50. You know, I'll ask the city, Mr. Fenton, the city solicitor's office, that doesn't preclude a police officer from offering help at this point. For example, if there was a complaint that someone was panhandling, an officer could still take them and refer them to the shelter, a detox area, or a social service agency where they could get help.
Mr. Fenton.
The officer certainly would have some discretion. If he told them, for example, a panhandler to move on and then they didn't, then he'd really have no alternative but to exercise his authority as an officer and make an arrest. But, or he could, as you indicate, make some reference to social agencies. But I think the ordinance is addressed being mindful of the First Amendment rights that people have and the freedom of speech. And our solicitor wrote a lengthy opinion to the council back in August, October the 10th, basically spelling out the concerns that this ordinance faced, and yet we've come up with an ordinance that we think will initially at least address the problem in the downtown. We heard from Mr. Belanger expressing his concerns as a businessman in the downtown area, and frankly, I was approached outside City Hall the other night by someone asking for money. But that being said, I hope I've answered your question with respect to the role of a police officer in this, as to this ordinance.
Right, they don't have to make the arrest first or fine them first. I put the original motion in, and it actually came not from downtown, but out at Plain Street. I was receiving complaints. You want to hear aggressive? You're in McDonald's drive-through, and people are banging on your window. You're at the pharmacy, and you're picking up your prescription. People tapping your window. You're at the Lord overpass, and people are walking over and hitting your window. That's aggressive panhandling. And it's my understanding, if you own a business of, a freestanding business, and it says no loitering and no solicitation, you could call the police and they could move them, ask them to move on. That's my understanding. Downtown, they don't have that. We do have businessmen downtown, as Mr. Belanger spoke. I had one guy tell me he can't clean his windows without being challenged for money. I've had residents tell me that. It's not the idea we're not compassionate. It's how do you protect your residents and how do you protect the businesses? If someone's panhandling and the police come and ask them to move, I doubt they're going to be fined $50. They're just going to be asked to move. But that's up to the discretion of the police. But that's why I originally made this motion. It's getting out of hand with some individuals. And I concur with some of the speakers tonight. If the police find someone panhandling and they have a certain problem, maybe it's best to direct them to the agency that could best help that problem. And whether it's, if someone's injured or has some type of medical condition, with Social Security and Mass Health, it may be a blessing that they would get help. The idea isn't to hurt anybody, it's also try to help those in need. And so that would be the idea of moving them along into a direction where they could get help. But that's why I originally put this motion in, and it was the aggressiveness of some panhandlers. I did read the Worcester ordinance, and I don't know if that's been overturned at this point, but originally it wasn't. And that even goes into people standing on roadways, on the islands in the roadways, and again, it's aggressive behavior. But I'll support the motion. Of course, I put it in originally, and after I read what the law department did come out with, I concur. I will vote for it. It's not, and there are some issues with the law, but I think at times you need to challenge the law. And I'm not an attorney, but I think to protect your own citizens, to protect your own businesses, and especially if they can direct them into getting help, you need to challenge and do what you can. And so I'm going to support the ordinance. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This ordinance is before us tonight because there was an initiative by the City Council to send the matter to the Law Department and ask the Law Department to draw up an ordinance. And I believe that that vote was unanimous, that we would ask them to do that. And the reason for that was because there were problems. And I think probably every city councilor here was hearing about problems regarding panhandlers in the central, central business district. Everybody on this city council, and I think everybody in the city, would like to see the central business district do better. And I don't have to remind anybody that the central business district also hosts a national park where we like to see visitors come. And this ordinance just prohibits panhandlers from the central business district, and that's all. And I think that that what this council is doing is responding to what has become a problem in the downtown area. And so I intend to support it. It's not going to solve all of the social problems that exist in this city. It's not going to solve or put an end to panhandling. But I do think that given the amount of complaints that there have been in the downtown area in recent months, and they've become more numerous, and they seem to be, you hear of instances where it's become more aggressive, that the city council had to do something. And so what we're doing is passing this ordinance, hopefully. It doesn't mean that you can't panhandle in the city. You just can't panhandle in the city downtown. It doesn't mean that you can't, that people that collect bottles can't continue to collect bottles. The ordinance doesn't say anything about collecting bottles. But I intend to support the ordinance. I think that Council Laurie, I would commend Council Laurie for bringing the ordinance before us. I think that that we need something like this if we're going to get serious about trying to make the downtown area a more vibrant commercial district, and if we're going to be serious about preserving the national park down there.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I agree. The ordinance has come before us because it has become a problem for businesses downtown. But not only just businesses downtown, but businesses, throughout the city. And I have to say, look, I feel bad for these folks. I think all of us feel bad for folks that are not non-aggressive, but there are more people that are becoming a problem and intimidating people going downtown shopping, business owners and customers, which is why it did land before us tonight. We had to take action because we've heard from so many people. And I tell you, even at night, I've heard from women that tell me that just being approached at night, they're afraid. So, and I do agree that this is not about the city council being not compassionate. I have to tell you, I think the people in the city of Lowell are the most generous people in the Commonwealth. I can tell you, as a city councilor, all of us, we receive so many requests for charitable donations. There are so many charities in this city that it's overwhelming. And when there is a cause, when there is a need, people in the city, whether it's, we can all list the charities, from the Sun Santa, the Owl Diners, which is Salvation Army. The list goes on and on. Our churches, there are soup kitchens. If somebody needs help, then there's a place in the city, or there's someone in the city that can help. And if we need to reach out, if those individuals are on the street need more help, I am sure, in fact, I know there's a place or someone out there that is willing to step up and help them. So I agree we have to do something, but it doesn't mean that we are by far not compassionate to the people who have come upon hard times. And so I'm going to support this, for the reasons that I mentioned. I think it's something that we have to do in the downtown area, and if we want to be moving forward, and we all spoke about economic development downtown. So These are the types of things that we have to do, and I don't think we're trying to criminalize or, the characterization that this city council doesn't care about those people. I think we have showed time and time again through all the programs that we have that we care and we do as much as we possibly can, but we also have to balance this with the interest of the rest of the people in the city. So, thank you.
Roll call.
Mayor Murphy. Council Noon.
No.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Vice Chairman Donza.
No.
Council Mercia.
Yes, yes.
6 yeas.
6 yeas, motion passes. Next public hearing. In City Council, an ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending the traditional mixed-use TMU zoning district to include all parcels located in Lowell with frontage on the northerly side of Roger Street, as well as the entirety of 39 Whitehead Avenue, 551 Douglas Road, and 458 Whitworth Ave in Lowell, all of which are presently zoned regional retail. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed say nay. And there is a related item, item number 7, communication, report and recommendation from Planning Board. Ray proposed amendment extending the TMU zoning district to include the properties with frontage along Roger Street, between and including 576 and 687 Roger Street, 39 Whitehead Avenue, 551 Douglas Road, and 458 Whitworth Ave. At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Celine Lehman. I live at 213 Parkview Avenue. I have a procedural question. My husband's out of town and asked if I would be able to read a statement in his behalf.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you via this written testimony. I stand in full support of the Roger Street zoning changes before you tonight. My wife and I, though not originally from Lowell, have made our home here for the past 30 years. We both work in the city and have raised a son here. It's our hope that our son will choose to remain in Lowell after college, but regardless, he loves this place and its people. The future of the city matters deeply to our family. Many Lowell residents before and after my statement will provide material justification for the zoning change. Traffic congestion on Roger Street, the safety of pedestrians and drivers, the lack of a buffer between the residential property and the commercial, the consistency of a locally utilized rather than regionally utilized commercial district. I agree with all of these arguments. Those business and property owners who oppose the rezoning will complain about the loss of potential value to their property, the loss of potential jobs, the loss of potential development for Lowell. I will point out that forecasting the future increased value of commercial property is far more speculative than forecasting the decreased value of a residential property rezoning in poor zoning decisions. I would like to ask the council to think beyond the immediate toward a vision of the city that benefits those who live there. The master plan for Lowell envisions zoning where the residents and the commercial establishments coexist in harmony. Currently, this section of Roger Street is such a place. We do our business along Roger Street. We use the floors, the dry cleaner, the convenience stores, the restaurants, the dentist, the tavern. They are part of our community. It is a commercial zone enjoyed by local, not regional customers. It's our goal to ensure the status quo. It is to ensure that the neighborhood of Belvedere does not have to worry about the creep of large national box stores, cheek to jowl with backyards, birthday parties, and barbecues. It's to ensure that our children and grandchildren can walk to Shed Park without the worry of heavy traffic, truck traffic, and homeowners are not woken by those frequenting late-night fast food drive-thrus. The future of Lowell's depends on the security and cohesiveness of its neighborhoods. I thank you again for this opportunity, and I regret that I could not deliver it in person. Respectfully, Stephen Lehman, 213 Parkview Avenue. And I will be very brief. I would also like to put my support behind this zoning change. I'm grateful for the planning board's support of this change. We have no interest in harming the current business owners. As my husband said, we use those businesses a great deal. We're just trying to keep the flavor of our neighborhood safe and at the status quo. Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else speaking in favor? Name and address for the record, please.
Steve Hatton, 35 Harlan Avenue, organizer of the Belvedere Neighborhood Group. I, too, am speaking in favor of this proposal as a means to safeguard against the encroachment of large retailers and chain-style fast food restaurants into this section of the city because it is in extremely close proximity to a densely populated residential area. Changing the zoning along this section of Rogers Street will not change, but rather preserve the types of local neighborhood-oriented businesses that are there now, as well as preserve the high-quality residential environment also characteristic of the area. This is quoting out of the zoning codes. The TMU district is designated to promote a mix of residential and retail uses in secondary areas where neighborhood-scale commercial activity can enhance the character of the surrounding residential area. If you, the lawmakers of the city, would like this area to change over time as a regional retail district with larger big box stores, drive-through restaurants with late hours of operation, then leaving this as a regional retail zone will set that course. And I think that'll come at the expense of the residential quality and feel that the area enjoys today. But if you believe in promoting a mix of healthy residential and retail activity, and you think this is preferred, then I ask you to vote for this change. This change was promoted by the residents of the area to safeguard the quality of the neighborhood. It was unanimously approved by the zoning board, and I ask you to approve it as well as a measure, and in doing so, improve the quality of the city for the present and the future. Thank you very much.
Anyone else speaking in favor?
Good evening. My name is Steve Gendron. I live at 20 Clark Road. I'm also a member of the Planning Board. I came down here tonight to try to encourage you all to support this zoning change to TMU. In my opinion, not in my opinion, but I think it's a fact, zoning in the city should reflect the type of development that we want to see in that particular parcel. And in my opinion, I believe that regional retail in this district is not in the best interest of the city. It's also, the opinion of this neighborhood group. It's the opinion of 100 or so people that signed the petition that they submitted a long time ago now. And it was the unanimous opinion of the planning board. In fact, it was really a 6-0 decision because Mr. Lockhart, who had previously supported this decision, wasn't available, so the alternate, Mr. Malovich, stepped in and he supported it as well. So it's an overwhelming majority of the planning board supported the change. It's a compromise proposal that's before you. As you remember, this came before you one other time. Based on the discussion that happened here on this council floor, the planning board made a modification to the zone and took out all those properties that only abutted light industrial. That included, the bank and the property, Mr. Stylos' mom's property, and a few others that only abutted light industrial zone. So the properties in this particular zone only abut residential properties. So that was the significant compromise. There are 3 points that I really wanted to point out to you. First, the master plan. You all voted on and supported the city's master plan. And if you go to the first goal of the master plan, the sustainable neighborhoods, the very first objective is preserve the unique quality and character of each of Lowell's neighborhoods. And then if you go further and you look at the objectives or the action items within that objective, it says continue to reform zoning codes to align with evolving and emergent community needs, land uses, and types of neighborhood character. So you all supported this plan that says you will continually change zones if necessary to support neighborhood character, and that's exactly what this is. The second thing I wanted to point out is that there seems to be a misconception that protections are already in place to avoid undesirable business in this area. That is not true. This whole thing started, I'll give you the Taco Bell story, and I beg the mayor for a little bit of latitude on the time. This started with the Taco Bell proposal that came up about 2 years ago now on the corner of Parkview and Roger Street. That proposal was going to have that fast food with the drive-through in there that was going to be open until 4 in the morning. It was going to have a dumpster that was backed right up to the neighborhood properties, and it was going to require tractor-trailer traffic to come through the neighborhood to access Taco Bell. Because the problem was, if you get off of 495 and go down 38 with a tractor-trailer, the road there is too narrow, and you can't take a right-hand turn into the property to make deliveries. So what they suggested as a solution was get off at 133, come down Andover Street, go through the neighborhood, perhaps down Wentworth Ave, then take a left onto Roger Street and a left into the property. So this cannot be in the best interests of the neighborhood, but yet it only was defeated 3-2. And the reason for that is the underlying zoning supports that type of development. And the fact of the matter is that if the Taco Bell folks wanted to take this to court and go through that expense, they would have had a case to overturn this. So we can't wait for a project to be proposed to take action. We need to set the zone so that we eliminate those projects from happening in the future. And finally, I wanted to say that this is not a vote for a change, really. This is a vote to keep it the same. Nobody wants to damage the businesses that are there on Roger Street. The TMU zone is a commercial zone. It allows pizza places, a dentist's office, and florists, and convenience stores, gas stations, pubs. All of those things are supported in the TMU zone. The neighborhood, that section of Roger Street already has the characteristics of a TMU zone. There's a 26-unit apartment building in that zone right now that's non-conforming. It doesn't conform to the rules of our zone, but yet it's there. Changing it to TMU makes that conforming. The gentleman who owns the pub there, Kilkenny's Pub, has his residence right behind the pub. That's the definition of TMU, being able to live and have a business right in the same zone. This is a TMU zone, so all we're asking you to do is to change that mistake, really. And finally, I just ask you to please take a vote on this tonight. This has been a long time. It's been discussed on the planning board floor at least half a dozen times. Everybody on both sides of this issue deserves a vote tonight. I'd encourage you not to delay this or send it to a subcommittee or, God forbid, back to the planning board. And in closing, we just had an election. Everybody espoused that they were, supportive of neighborhood issues. Well, this is a neighborhood issue, and this is your chance to show that. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Terry Dillingham. I live at 154 Parkview Avenue. I would also like to strongly encourage you to approve the proposed amendment to extend the TMU zone along Roger Street. As Mr. Genren had already stated, the planning board unanimously supported this amendment, and the neighborhood, through all of the petitions, emails, and correspondence you've had with them, clearly support this change as well. Just to be clear, the neighborhood is in no way opposed to commercial development, and like everyone here, the property owners commercial property owners want to just ensure that the commercial use supports the neighborhood. This particular part of Roger Street is incredibly close. I mean, tens of feet away from residential homes. And it backs up a historic area where the residents share an enormous amount of time and energy and resources to support the area. My husband and I have chosen to start our family here, but to be honest, the potential negative impact of this area on our property value and our quality of life will affect our decision to stay. And without proper zoning, commercial uses will continue to encroach and degrade this neighborhood, which will have a negative impact on the entire city. It's not just a neighborhood issue, it really is a citywide issue. To be honest, if this neighborhood starts to go, the city will severely suffer. So the reality is that this commercial area has never been regional retail. These businesses are supported by the neighborhoods that surround them, and they are not pulling from the highway. The regional retail zoning is inappropriate, and this was highlighted by the Taco Bell zoning issue. We have also since learned that several property owners were approached by a large national box store to consolidate parcels and put in a large regional box store in this place. Without the adequate zoning, we would not be able to defeat something like that. The underlying zoning would permit that. The proposed amendment is an attempt to correct the zoning and match and preserve the current status of the commercial use in that area. The proposed amendment will not impact current businesses because they will be grandfathered in and will provide more potential and flexibility given the existing single-family home structures and small lot sizes. There's about 120 different property uses in the zoning code. Only 24 would change from going from regional retail to TMU. Half of those more restrictive, half are more permissive. In fact, the only current use that probably would need to be grandfathered in is the drive-through. And the new TMU zoning would actually bring more non-conforming uses into a conforming zone. It will prevent another fast food chain opening till 4 a.m. It'll prevent the 18-wheelers coming down the streets at 1 o'clock in the morning. It will prevent the very things that should not be permitted. Any opposition from the commercial owners is really, I just don't understand how you would bite the hand that feeds you. Without the neighborhood to support the businesses, they don't survive, the rents aren't paid, and the taxes don't come back to the cities. I anticipate the property owners will oppose the amendment and argue that the change in zoning devalues their property in some way. This argument is simply not true. Any change in value can only be the result of some new owner wanting to use the property for a use that is no longer permissible under TMU. Such uses would include an open-air drive-in theater, a wind energy facility, a manufacturing plant, a beverage bottling plant, a portable storage or shipping container facility. These uses are totally inappropriate and should not be possible given the parcel size, shape, and proximity to residential homes. Any statistics submitted to support such an argument can be countered by statistics demonstrating the exact opposite. I have examples here of several studies that show that the mixed-use retail is significantly more beneficial to a city than a type of regional retail use, and I can provide those to you. The master plan calls for commercial development to support the surrounding neighborhoods. Mr. Genron's already talked to you about that. The proposed amendment achieves that objective. It's what the master plan calls for. It's what the council approved. It makes sense. It's the council's obligation to implement that plan and do what is best for the city and not what is best for a very small number of property owners. The residents of the city strongly support the amendment. Hundreds have signed our petition in support. We ask that you listen to the city's residents and do what is right for the city and approve the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Richard Coffey. I live at 331 Parkview Avenue, abutting the proposed zone. I'm here in support of this zoning change. I'm asking you to help make sure that our neighborhood stays a neighborhood, a community of residents and businesses that support each other. I think that's what having a city is about. It's about supporting the people in it, supporting the people that live in apartment houses, that live in single-family houses, making sure they have a good quality of life. Regional retail is the wrong type of zoning for this section. The lot sizes tell you that right away. It was a mistake or oversight in a major city rezoning effort around 2005 to change it to regional retail. Prior to that, it was zoned as a type of intermediate business level, more akin to TMU than to regional retail. So this would be going, correcting a mistake and not making a major change, but going with something that we've had for many, many years. And it's only the past about 8 years or so that it's been different. The TMU provides a buffer between the regional retail further out on Rogers Street and the residential areas. This is a good thing. All right? All the current activities are grandfathered. More of them become conforming than non-conforming. It's just good all around. If any of the businesses choose to sell or move on, I think it gives them a wider range of realistic potential buyers, not pie-in-the-sky affairs that may never happen. The money effect, as far as the city goes and taxes, this is of no real concern to this because any change in the business values, up or down, make an inverse change, an opposite change in the residential values. So the city will come out pretty much the same as far as taxes go. And I know nobody wants to see the tax burden increased, but that's not going to be an issue here. One of the previous speakers indicated that there was a move afoot to consolidate properties. It's true. I was one of the people that received one of those letters. People wanted to buy me and some nearby properties out to make a larger lot, obviously a regional retail thing that would detract from the neighborhood. And if we keep, this creeping of regional retail operations in effect, you have profits going out of the city. You don't have the local owners in the city having the profits to spend in the city. You have the profits going to people out of town, out of state, stockholders. This does not help the city. So, in conclusion, I would say to you, one of the purposes of zoning is to promote the development in a stable environment. I think that this change will do just that. It will give us a stable environment for the neighborhood, for the residents, for the businesses. Development will go on, businesses will go on, and it'll be a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Trina Picardi. I live at 151 Parkview. I'm a founding member of Friends of Shed Park. We raised over $100,000 for the upgrade to Shed Park's playground and removal of the pool and put in the sprinkler pad. I'm also on the board of the directors for the Bay State Marathon. This event was held on the 20th. We had over 3,000 participants into the city of Lowell for our event. We had over 165 nights booked in local hotels, and thousands of dollars were spent in our city. I'm passionate about our city, about keeping our neighborhoods vibrant and the local businesses flourishing, and I'm here tonight to speak in support of this amendment. As pointed out by many of the other people this evening, the current zoning of regional retail does not define this one-lane stretch of Rogers Street, which is filled with local businesses and residences. Those local businesses and those people living there are the very definition of traditional mixed use. The zoning change before the council tonight, I believe, is a correction. I believe when it was created years ago that the traditional mixed use should have been extended from Shed Park down to Phoenix. This is not a drastic change limiting anyone's ability to sell or transfer their property. In the hundreds of use listed, as Terry said, there's approximately 200 that differ. Some are more restrictive, some are more beneficial. And the argument of lost revenue or earnings from any sale or transfer of property could not be substantiated since we don't know what the future plans of those properties could be. When the council debated this previously, Councilor Leahy suggested revisiting the area and suggested a compromise. That is exactly what is in front of the council tonight. The neighborhood was not so stubborn to see that we couldn't revise our goals. Those properties, again, bordering light industrial, have now been omitted as appropriate, even though several of those residences are there, and they're still then would be out of conformance with regional retail. The council asked the planning board last time to forward their recommendation, and they have. All 5 members voted to recommend this change and set forth this rezoning on to the next step of the city council. I ask you all here tonight to support the zoning change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor?
My name is Eric Nelson. I live at 154 Parkview Avenue. I was born and raised in Lowell. I just found out from my better half that we might be moving soon. In seriousness, I'm in support of the motion. I think it's good planning. It's an issue that was identified independently by the planning department, and the solution was identified independently in the master plan. It's good government. The white paper that Terry referenced shows that tax revenues are actually enhanced with mixed use as opposed to the regional retail use. And I think it's good time. This group has been before the planning board once, has been before this body, was sent back to the planning board, where it was voted unanimously to move ahead and approve this change in zoning. So I think quite simply for those reasons, good planning, good government, and good time, that I ask that you support the motion tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor?
Good evening. I'm attorney Ellen Collins. I live at 212 Parkview Avenue in Lowell. My parents purchased this house, the house where I live now, in 1962, and they've lived there for over 50 years. I grew up there. I can remember walking down Parkview and up Rogers Street to Glenny's Ice Cream, and looking out behind it, and you could see not swamp grass and things like that. It's a very different story today, and I'm here to speak in favor of the zoning amendment to extend the TMU. First, I want to express my appreciation for all of the neighborhood businesses. Our neighborhood is a great place to live because we have, such good services around us, and they create jobs. Florist, the tavern, the dry cleaners, Simon's convenience store where my dad gets his lottery tickets. And there's no intent to harm any of those businesses. The goal of the amendment is to preserve the status quo and to prevent the traffic situation from getting worse. I mean, my parents have lived there for 50 years. I visited them, I grew up there for the first 18, visited at least monthly, through college, law school, et cetera, and have been a resident in the neighborhood again for the past 5 years. So I've watched it change. The problem is that Rogers Street in the area in question is not adequate to handle the traffic generated by regional retail. And that presents, two issues, issues of safety and issues of congestion. Rogers Street between Buttman and Oakland Square is a 2-lane road with a bunch of traffic lights on it. In our neighborhood, it's been a very stable neighborhood. We have a lot of elderly people. 7 of my parents' neighbors have been their neighbors for 50 years, which means they're all in their 80s, and they still drive. And we've also been blessed to have many young families move into the neighborhood. So there are, at least 5 families just in one block with kids in elementary school. And those kids go from our neighborhood to Shed Park to use the facilities there. And the traffic situation is such that, you know, there are 6 red lights between 495 and Oakland Square. People blow through the red lights, and one child in our neighborhood was actually hit when someone tried to get through the red light at Oakland Square and was talking on a cell phone. The situation will only become worse if people consolidate their properties and sell to, you know, a big box store or another automotive dealership. I mean, as it is now, people on my street, you know, don't use Rogers Street. The nearest entrance to 495 for me is Route 38, you know, 495. I never use it because the traffic's too bad. You know, if I go north, I go out Andover Street and get on at the 133 exit. If I go south, you know, I go out Boylston Street and get on at Woburn Street because there are 6 traffic lights between my house and Rogers Street, and you don't get through them on the first time. So the purpose of the zoning amendment is not to, you know, do any harm to neighborhood businesses. It's really to prevent the traffic situation from getting worse. The zoning amendment would preserve the uses of the properties, you know, that are current, but would prevent big box type stores, trucks in the neighborhood. You know, the last thing Rogers Street needs is another automotive dealership. So, you know, existing uses would be grandfathered, and, you know, really all we want to do is preserve the status quo. I ask for your support for the amendment, and I thank you for your consideration.
Denise Coffey, 331 Parkview Avenue. I support this amendment. We abut the commercial zone, and we have been through a number of situations where we have had to fight to kind of protect the neighborhood. The Taco Bell thing was really difficult for us. So we were very surprised when we were approached to sell our property. And we were even more surprised when we found out that they also wanted to buy the 2 houses behind us. So obviously, you're creating a zone that allows them to create a big business, and you're creeping into the neighborhood. So we're very much opposed to that. We love the businesses that are there. We support them. We ask for your support. Thank you for listening to us.
Anyone else in favor? In favor. Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening, councilors. Louis Stiles, 24 Holyrood Avenue, Lowell. This motion has been before you, as it's been stated many times. I just sent an email to everybody over the last few days, and I just want to highlight a few things regarding that. When this was placed before you in the summertime, it was sent back to the planning board with instructions that there needed to be more information gathered regarding the impact of the zoning change to the property values, and also to ask the property owners who were shut out of the process previously to be included. After several months, and fewer people to actually involve with this ordinance, that still was not done. Now, these are individuals who, whose properties together exceed millions of dollars, that pay tens of thousands of dollars in taxes to the city. And yet, they were not involved, either before or now. And they will tell you, because I talked with them and I asked point blank, were you contacted to get your input? And they were not. Where is the fairness there? If the city's trying to portray itself as business-friendly and wanting economic development, it's not just this thing that you're looking at tonight. You're looking at trying to set out a precedence that you want to be a business-friendly city so your business can expand or relocate here. Not involving businesses into ordinances that directly affect their business is not business-friendly. And I don't think that's what the city wants to portray itself as. The other thing about the lack of information, at the planning board hearing last week, I asked if there was ever a study done, considering a study to be done for the values. And they had talked about a plan that they were going to do, reevaluating all the corridors of the city. And when it was posed to Mr. Clausen, he says that there was no, even though they were doing a review of the corridors of the city, that there was no part of it that was going to include financial impacts to that. And making dramatic decisions like that without having all the information that you should have, and that would include what does this affect the property values and the tax rates, is like trying to solve a problem with only half the information. It just doesn't add up. Further, the idea that this is tax neutral, where is the data that says it's tax neutral? To me, when you're adding residential units, doesn't that mean that you're going to put more services that are going to be affected by this? School, fire, public safety? That's not tax neutral. That's drawing revenue from the city. That's costing the city money. Where is the information that says it's tax neutral? Why isn't that being used in the discussion? Why aren't people that are directly affected not involved in the discussion? So I ask you tonight that you look at those points of fairness and realize that there already are safeguards involved. It's already worked. If there's a project that's not going to be acceptable, believe me, I'm sure that there will be enough hue and cry to prevent that if that's not the right thing for the area. So I ask you again to vote against this ordinance, leave it as is, because not only is there no project on the table for discussion, but the protections and safeguards are already in place and they have worked. So I ask you to reject this ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Dominic Intravaya. I'm a trustee for GIM Realty Trust. We own property at 590 and 638 Rogers Street. Now, at a planning board hearing last week, all I heard was Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Taco Bell wanted to exit through my property, and I said no. They wanted to move my driveway over. They wanted to move my sign. Since then, they've relinquished their interest in Rogers Street. So why all the interest in Taco Bell? Now, if another big box store wants to come in, it's up to the planning board and the city council, if they allow it, To change this with nothing planned doesn't do the city any good. As far as the member of the planning board said, there's no change. There is change. The change is for the city of Lowell to lose revenue. And I don't think the city of Lowell wants to lose revenue when nothing's planned. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name's Richard Barrett. I reside at 39 Whitehead Ave, and I own Kilkenny Pub at 660 Rogers Street. Both properties are in this proposal. I would just like to say that the neighborhood group and the planning board has been working on this for 2 years, but the property owners and the business owners only found out about this May of this year through a legal notice in the paper. At the first planning board meeting, 70% of the affected property owners either went to the meeting or sent a letter in opposition. The planning board decided to send it to the city council with no recommendation. You people sent it back to the planning board. They decided to take one side of the street out and basically just rezone one side. We can go back and forth, like everybody has said, on the values. It's either going to go up or it's going to go down. But without the documentation, we really don't know. But if you talk to any real estate appraisal, they said the value will go down. Between my two properties, I pay roughly $12,000 in real estate taxes, and my liquor license and fees roughly $4,000 a year annually to the city. No one knows the traffic problem better than me because I live right there. Cars constantly go down Whitehead Ave and Allen Street as a cut-through to get to the lights at Douglas Road. And I would like to know if traffic is really the biggest problem, how rezoning one side of the street and leaving the other side to be potentially redeveloped is going to solve any traffic problems. I've done everything the city asks. I've tried to be a good neighbor and a good business person. I would ask you people to please vote to leave the zoning the way it is. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening, council members. My name is Lisa Kukos. My husband, Angelo, is not here. He's working at Jilly's. We own Jilly's Roast Beef at 600 Rogers Street, but we live on 93 Dinsmore Street, which is in Belvedere. So I am a resident of Belvedere, Lowell, Mass., and I have a business on Rogers Street. When we bought the property, it was commercial property, like it is now. I don't see why everything has to change overnight to traditional mixed use. When we bought one thing, like if somebody had a residential house and said, okay, now we're gonna make it so it's commercial, you could have a big box store right next to you. That's not right either, okay? Everybody says nothing will change. If nothing will change, leave the things the way that they are. We just work every day. I know there's a lot of traffic on Rogers Street, but there's a lot of traffic on Bridge Street. There's a lot of traffic on Chelmsford Street. It's not just Belvedere is the only thing in Lowell. I respect my neighbors' opinions. I'm not looking for pie in the sky from Taco Bell. I guess I am emotionally attached to my business because it is like my second home. I look at it possibly as my retirement. We have 6 employees from Lowell that we employ. My husband and myself, that makes 8 people at that business. We do the best we can. I don't think it's fair to change what we bought to something else. I don't know what else to say. Thank you for your time, and have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition.
Good evening. My name is Sotirio. I live in 276 Pleasant Street, Lowell. I own 2 properties in Rogers Street, 688, which I own it for 30 years. I own the property and the business. And 7 years ago, I bought the next property, which is 688. I own it for 30 years. 7 years ago, I bought the 680, which is next to it. I did buy the property because it was commercial, and I wish to stay commercial as it was before. And now, if that change goes through, both my properties are going to get affected. Nobody asked me, nobody discussed with me how much I'm going to get this property is going to get affected or for how long and anything else. I disagree with that change. I hope, I wish to stay the same way it was before. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Name and address, please.
Good evening, I'm Joan Barrett. I do live in Lowell, have paid taxes on my house for, I don't want to say how long, less than 50 years, let's put it that way. I have 4 adult children that are taxpayers in the city also. In listening to all of the talk, I get the feeling that they're trying to minimize the value of a commercial retail zone classification. I don't know all the business things, I don't know all the wordings of the people that spoke to me, but I do know if you own a business, which my son does, and people can say that's why you're speaking for him, and that's true, but the Belvedere residents' neighbors are all opposed to him. But not all of Belvedere residents are in the association. At any rate, my son bought the business, and it was in the proper zone, the commercial retail zone. That was the zone. He wouldn't have bought it if it wasn't. And so when I hear other members say that it's in the wrong zone, I'm not sure that that's true. And further, I don't know. I listened tonight to how horrifying it'll be, what a bleak picture it will be if something happens down the road. The trucks will be traveling where they shouldn't be and all of that. I really don't think there's anything on the planning board right now. And talking to the downtown, they said, no, there's nothing on the planning board right now. So I certainly want my son's business to keep going. I like Lisa and Jilly's. I think their sandwiches are fine. I like Milan's. I like the Dominic's little strip mall. I think it's all fine. I think I'll always be disappointed in May when we found that little notice in the paper and realized that already there'd been a neighborhood group led by an influential person that had been working towards this zoning change. It would have been easier to take if they had knocked on the door or put a note under the door if they were fearful and said, listen, we're going to go against you, all of you businesses. At any rate, what can you say except that I don't believe that it's as bleak as they say that it will be, and I think that they could tackle the businesses one at a time. If something were to be, if they were to be approached, certainly Kilkenny Pub could be, if they tried to sell something, the board would step up. The same with Jilly's and all of that. The other thing, our numbers are cut in half as far as getting support for this because it came down that both sides of Roger Street, that include Wendy's, Dunkin' Donut, Hogan Tire, Sage Bank, all of those were part of this package. And then suddenly they were excused. So we're left just a little group of people trying to fight this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that part of the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the council? Councilor Kennedy.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that this matter be referred to the Council Subcommittee on Zoning for report back to the full council within 3 weeks, if that's acceptable to the chairman. And if I get a second to the motion, then I'd like to speak on the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am familiar with the Taco Bell situation that occurred 2 years ago, and I am old enough to remember the Capitol Toys situation, which was further on down the street many years ago. This zoning change may have been before the planning board for a long time, and it may have been, the residents may have been dealing with it for a long time, but this city council has not. This came before the city council before. It was sent back and is back before us now with an amendment that omits part of the original district that was to be redistricted. I think that what makes this zoning change unique is that most often a zoning change will be, the petition will come from within the zoning district. And it's usually to pave the way for some sort of development within the district. In this instance, and so usually it's property owners who live within the zoning district that are trying to change the district. In this instance, or the zoning, in this instance, you have people who live in one zoning district who are trying to change the zoning for people who live in a different district. And as you've heard from the speakers, although this is a commercial district, many of the properties that lie within that district are owned by people that live in Lowell, and many of them live in the neighborhood, the same neighborhood that is asking for the zoning change, which happens to be my neighborhood. And I remember Glenny's ice cream and how good Glenny's ice cream was. I think that in looking at the proposal, there is a portion that maybe does not need to be included. And I'm speaking about the properties that would lie between Buttman Road and Parkview, because you have Whitehead Ave, which runs along the rear of those properties. The potential for acquiring the depth necessary for big box retail or for any other type of major retail is very, very unlikely, because that's a public way, and it's not a paper street. That's a street where people live. And the same thing is true for the properties that lie between Buttman Road and Douglas Road, because Allen Street prevents additional depth there. So I'm not sure that those two areas need to be included in the zoning amendment. However, I think this. I think that if we're going to do a zoning change, and this city council has done several zoning changes over the past 2 years, but basically those have been amendments to the ordinance. In this instance, we're being asked to change the map. And changing the map is, in my view, a more serious thing. And it does affect property values one way or another. It may not diminish the value, it may not enhance the value, but it certainly changes their properties from the way they are right now. And so I think that if we're going to do that, it's worthwhile to be very thoughtful and prudent about doing it before you make that move. If this was a mistake back in 2006 or 2005 or whenever the zoning map was changed, then and if this proposal has already been amended once, then why wouldn't we want to be very careful before we make any other change, before we make any necessary corrections? On top of that, in addition to the map, it's probably worthwhile to look at whether or not there should be changes to the ordinance regarding drive-throughs altogether in each one of those districts. Maybe that should be limited or changed, or maybe that should require planning board approval or city council approval or something like that. But it might be that we can tweak the ordinance, the language in the zoning ordinance itself, in a way that provides additional protection to the neighborhood. And at the same time, maybe we don't need to make maybe we don't need to include all of those properties in any zoning change. I can understand that if I was in a butter to where the Taco Bell property was going to go, the proposal was going to go, that I would be concerned. But the properties up the street, I don't think that there's any likelihood that there's going to be any significant changes. Those properties just don't have the configuration or the size that would be required to do that type of to do those types of changes. So anyways, I think it's worthwhile to take a couple of weeks to have the zoning subcommittee talk to both sides, the people who are for and the people who are against, to speak to the Division of Planning and Development and see if there are other things within the ordinance that can be changed or tweaked to improve it, and then come back and then take a vote. Certainly, if the neighbors have been trying to do this for 2 years, and if the planning board's been trying to do this for 6 months, certainly the city council should be able to take 2 or 3 weeks in order to get it right. And that's what the motion is aimed at doing.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you. I concur with Councilor Kennedy. First of all, we were given this tonight, the protest, and I have some questions on the first, second, and third, how long they've been involved. And as far as I know, we've never been given any type of, which we requested, any type of information that would affect the property values. As far as tweaking, I don't know if we can do that, but that's something certainly I would like to look at. I had a situation earlier in the year out on Bigelow Street where a developer was trying to put in homes, and for several years there was some problems. And exactly what Councilor Kennedy's talking about happened. The developer, the neighbors, they talked, and then we ended up putting in a motion, and everyone's pretty happy out there right now. Just looking at what the discussion is here from the protesting values, I find it, after the last meeting, I had actually called, I was thinking of putting in a motion to change the way the city can change zoning. If it comes through a city department, you really don't have to send out the letters, I guess, and things like that. And I was told, well, maybe you don't want to put that motion in. Generally, when that happens, there's been several neighborhood meetings, everyone's been on board, and we move forward. In this case, I don't think everyone was notified, and obviously everyone's not on board. I'd be willing to give it just a couple of weeks, as Councilor Kennedy says. Maybe we can find some common ground here. I'd like some information on if there's going to be a value loss. I don't know. I have known nothing about real estate. But there's nothing before the planning board now to bring in another Taco Bell. There's nothing there that we can't wait for 3 weeks. There's nothing pressing there. And before we change people's evaluations or their restrictions, I wouldn't mind having 3 more weeks. Thank you.
I would like to correct the statement that there's been no evidence
I'm
presented
sorry,
about
you're out of
targeting.
order. You've had your chance to speak.
I haven't.
Unless the councilors want to suspend the rules.
No, I'll suspend the rules, because the information I'm going by is from the opposing side that they were never involved in the talk. So I'm referring to one side, so I'd suspend the rules.
All right, motion to suspend the rules by Council Laurie. Second by Council Mercier.
So there's 2 issues that you
Please
said.
wait, we're not done. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The rules have been suspended. Now you may speak.
So there's 2 issues that you're saying you don't have information on. One was the value of properties. I have submitted now 2 times to the council articles that specifically talk about studies that say mixed use will increase the value to the city. So we are the only people, I agree, you've been asking for information on this. You've been provided it. The other side has not provided any. So if you have to make a decision, I think at this point you make it based on the information you have, which says that the value to the city actually increases for mixed use. And to the extent the opposition has not been involved in the process, they have now for months and months, and we have been fighting this fight for years, and I think it's appalling, to be quite frank, to not get a vote on this. So I have emailed each of you, council members, twice now, these articles. I can hand them to you now. These say that it will actually increase value to the city. So to just ignore that is incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone wants to read it. I guess not.
Anyone else on the motion? Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I appreciate the efforts that have been put in here by the people that are in favor of this change and by the people that are opposed. And I also can appreciate that it's been kind of a long haul for them. There was this Taco Bell proposal, which took, I'm sure, many meetings and a lot of organization to organize against that, if that was the case. And this was the solution that a group has come up with. But I think Councilor Kennedy is correct in saying that this is a fairly recent phenomena for us. I mean, we did have one meeting about this. We sent it back to the planning board for some sort of reconsideration and to see if there were a compromise. And the compromise that's come back is to take out some of the affected properties. But the properties that are still in are all very much opposed. So, the compromise has not, I think, worked to make everybody happy here. And maybe that can't be the case. Maybe that can't be the case. But maybe it can be. There have been some I don't know that just continuing to pluck properties out is going to work, because the properties left behind are still going to remain opposed. Maybe it's time to look at a different way. Maybe it's time to look at the way drive-throughs are regulated, or whether there's some other zone that's more appropriate here that the people whose properties are affected would be supportive of. Maybe that's all kind of pie in the sky hopefulness, but I think it is worth a try. And I can appreciate people pushing for a vote tonight, but I think it's, as opposed to getting a no vote tonight, may be worth the effort of taking another look at this, because it really is only the second time the council has had to have a meeting about this. And we're hearing very strong opposition still from the people whose properties are affected. So, I serve on the zoning subcommittee. I was involved in the rezoning. We have had changes along the way. The master plan contemplates that. Yes, the master plan contemplates preserving neighborhood character and all of that. It also contemplates having places for business to operate in the city, and the council has been generally supportive of that. This is a commercial strip with a lot of commercial property value. I live nearby too. I'm well aware of the traffic and the problems created by traffic in that neighborhood. But by and large, this is something that's coexisted with the commercial district and with the abutting neighborhood for many years. I know the proponents of this want that to continue. I think the landowners there want it to continue too. They just want to preserve their property rights for the future. And maybe there's a way to make both of those parties happy. Maybe there isn't, but I think it's worth another chance to look at that. So I'll support the motion to go to the subcommittee on this.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I will support preserving the character of the neighborhood and the quality of life for the neighborhood, while at the same time supporting the business and being fair to them. I think the proposal by Councilor Kennedy is a fair one. That is, this would be, send it to the zoning subcommittee, will give us an opportunity to really look at it, and also to hear from the business owners who tonight said they didn't have enough time. This plan has been, gone on for 2 years. So now's the opportunity. After that, then we can say we fairly hear from the business community, and as well as the resident who've been working on this plan for years. So that said, I'll support the motion to send it to the subcommittee, and I promise that we can do it in 2 weeks or so with the, if okay with Councilor Martin and Councilor Leahy. Thank you.
Councilor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I too have concerns, and I'm glad that they compromised. The compromise only shortened the stretch of businesses and made it shorter. And I have concerns about this shorter stretch and how it will be affected by the zoning change. But I have to think back to the planning board. The planning board voted to give Taco Bell the boot because it wasn't fair to the residents, and it worked without a zoning change. They defeated that through the help of the planning board. So I don't know why we can't even just minimize it even further. I'm still concerned about the fact that if this zoning change had been in effect many, many years ago, I'm thinking if this rezoning took place, would there be no Sage Bank? Would there be no Hannaford? Would there be no Hogan Tires? Would there be no Jilly's? What would be there? It's a commercial district. I want these amenities there, but not by my house. I mean, I don't know. This is just my feeling. So this compromise is a good one. This is a substitute to this proposal here, and I support it. Thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Just very quickly, as I said earlier, I was referring to the protesting the Roger Street Amendment as I was reading on the values. Would it be possible, now we've asked, I think at least once, that we get a report on declining values. I don't know, can we get a report from our assessor's office? I'm not into real estate, and before we go any farther.
Right.
Mr. Manager.
The people that we would do that, we would have do that, something like that, would be the assessors. But it's really speculative on their part. They don't do that type of work. They do, they determine values based on the market for tax purposes,
Right.
not for something like this.
So normally, if we send something to the planning department, where would we get that report from? Where would they go to?
On something like that, on the planning. Adam, do you have any thoughts on that issue?
Mr. Baking.
Well, I think the only people who would be truly qualified to evaluate something like that would be a licensed appraiser. And I think the real challenge, and Councilor Kennedy, this is his area of expertise more than mine, Councilor Kennedy, but the real challenge is that there are a lot of factors at play in this proposed change. There's been some discussion of some of the uses that would be different. Some are more favorable, perhaps to value. Some are less favorable to value. There are also a lot of non-use related differences between these zones in terms of dimensional standards that can dictate the development intensity. There are differences in the parking standards. There are differences in what sign types are allowable, which impacts the viability of different business types. Even if they're allowable in both, they may not work if there isn't the possibility of obtaining the signage that you need to actually have a functioning business. So it's an extremely complicated analysis to do, and while I'm actually familiar with a lot of studies that have shown that in general terms, mixed-use development on a per-acre basis is more valuable than purely retail or regional retail type development on a per-acre basis, when you get down to the nuances of the difference in these two zoning districts, it's extremely difficult to have a definitive opinion about value. And I think more importantly, there are a lot of reasons to enact or not enact zoning. Property value preservation to some degree is one of them, but it really isn't the primary reason and the primary thing that should be being thought about in terms of whether an area should be zoned any particular zoning. The real process that one should use in determining whether a zoning of any kind is appropriate is to have a vision for what is desired in an area. And really it should be a vision for what you want to see 10, 15, 20 years out. And the zoning that should be enacted should reflect what you'd like to see at that time. Because zoning isn't going to change anything today. What it's going to change is what can happen over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And ultimately, that's why the typical process when you want to enact any kind of zoning change, particularly a map change, is to do some sort of a planning effort that involves the various stakeholder parties and really get to some consensus around what you want that vision to be. And then you craft the zoning to be consistent with that vision. And then it's actually usually a more straightforward process of adopting it. And I think, I actually commend the council's consideration of maybe taking a little more time with this, because I think there is an opportunity here potentially to really get an understanding of what it is that are the valid concerns that the people who are advocating for this change have. And I think it's also an opportunity to get a better sense of what the very valid concerns that the property owners who are concerned about this proposal may have. And what there's been a lot of references to the master plan. The master plan actually has a more specific recommendation in it around this very question than anything that's been cited so far, which is that there are areas where there is a transition between what is clearly a regional retail environment, and certainly the portion of 38 as you get closer to 495 is unquestionably that, and more neighborhood character areas where it's possible that none of the existing zoning districts are really the appropriate answer. And I believe this may be one of those situations where I think it may be that there is actually a need to create a new zoning district that reinforces some of the neighborhood character factors that the neighborhood is concerned about here, but also allows the right mix of commercial uses that the property owners are concerned about. And I think there may be a way to do that. That can't happen quickly, though. That can't happen overnight. And that really requires spending some real time with all the stakeholders and really understanding their perspectives. And I think that would be my 2 cents about how I'd recommend moving ahead with this.
Thank you, that was very helpful. So, I'm going to support Councilor Kennedy. As I said, I'm just reading this, and I have one side saying one thing, one the other. But if we can sit down for a couple of weeks and look, and maybe, as Councilor Kennedy said and Mr. Bakey said, really look at it to amend to keep really both sides, the neighborhood safe, but yet protect the business owners, I think for just a couple of weeks that it could be well worthwhile. Thank you.
Councilor Lee.
Thank you. I just want to add that want to thank everybody for coming down for this and against it. We have read the emails. I think send it to the subcommittee for another discussion, just to make sure that we do the right thing is wise, and I'm going to support to send it to the subcommittee at this time. I know people want to vote tonight, but we want to make sure we do the right thing here, and another 2 weeks to make sure that all goes well. I think it would be wise for everybody. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm ready to vote on this tonight. I was ready to vote on it when it was before the council the last time. But I also see there was a notice that, the council, I can understand the frustration of the proponents of this and the people in the neighborhood that have been working for 2 years. I mean, the council did send it at our regular meeting, and this is a letter from the city clerk to the planning board that the council referred the following ordinance. It was read to the planning board for a report and recommendation. We did get the report. They did hold a public hearing. We get a recommendation. So I just, wonder where does this end? And we sent it to a public hearing at that point in time. So I'm willing to go with, a delay, but you can understand the frustration of the folks who have been working on this for a couple of years. We have to bring some closure to this, and at what point, there were some adjustments made, there were some agreements made to look at certain pieces of property. So, I'll support going to the subcommittee, but I think it's only fair to to Mr. Gendron and all the other speakers that have been, Mr. Coffey, and all the speakers and that have been working on this very diligently to bring some closure. So I'm not sure, was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks to the maker of the motion, so at least the people here know when they can anticipate something.
Councilor Kennedy.
The motion was for 3 weeks, but I think that the chairman of the subcommittee should, with his approval, you think 3 weeks is fine?
Councilor Kennedy, if it's okay with Councilor Martin and Councilor Leahy, we can do it in 2 weeks before the regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the motion to refer to the subcommittee, zoning subcommittee, before taking a vote? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thanks for everyone for coming down, but we'll be before the subcommittee when they schedule that meeting. Okay, at this point, we're returning to the regular agenda, and there was an item that the manager wanted to speak on. Mr. Manager.
Actually, if we could, I see, before we get to Gunther, Mr. Wallenstein, perhaps if we could do the library gift, which is number, I know that Ms. Woodley has been here for quite a while for some good news for the Pollard Memorial Library in terms of accepting a gift. So that
that's
if we could
item
take
number 9. A motion to suspend the rules, take an item out of order by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Number 9 is a vote. Vote in City Council authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $200 for use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library. The Massachusetts Friends of the Library desires to award the sum of $200 to the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library in recognition of the support and encouragement given to the Friends group, and the City of Lowell desires to accept the gift of said funds for use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library. Now therefore be it voted that the city manager be, and he is hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $200 for the use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 43A. Be it further voted that the city manager will convey the city's appreciation for the gift. Second reading by title. And City Council authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $200 for the use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library.
Move approval.
Move approval by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Martin.
Thank you. I know this is a non-controversial thing and a small amount of money, but I do think, the Friends should be congratulated for their efforts here. I think it's the event that they had for use of this money that attracts children to the library, gets them participating in a fun social event. And I've been involved in similar things with other organizations in the past. I think it's a commendable effort and glad to see it going on.
Anyone else? We need a roll call.
Mayor Murphy. Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Donson.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
That's 8 yeas.
Motion passes. Mr. Manager? Mr. Gunther's present.
We have Mr. Wallenstein here to speak on the rollout of the new solid waste program beginning on January 1st. Mr. Wallenstein.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I do have, I'm not a big proponent for making lots of copies and handing things out, but I did want to provide you some information. These are outreach and education opportunities that have already come along, and I'll mention those in my brief presentation. There is also one for the head table, so if you'd make sure one gets up there. So, councilors, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Vice Chair, Councilor-elect, and Assistant City Manager, thank you for allowing me to speak at this opportunity to update the City Council and the Lowell residents on the accomplishments of the past few years, the status of the new curbside collection contract, which was the original motion, and progress of the single-stream recycling implementation plan. If I may, some brief information about where we've been. In fiscal year '07, with a budget of about $6.5 million, the city collected 42,000 tons of trash and only 2,900 tons of recycling, which made our curbside rate about 7%, not so good. 5 years ago, I appeared before this body to seek your input and guidance to change the way Lowell had been collecting curbside trash for the previous 15 years. Planning for 25,000 trash carts was at times controversial, yet trend-setting among greater Lowell communities. There were skeptics, even among the council. Could this be carried out in a city of 100,000? How would this work in dense neighborhoods and narrow streets? Well, let me share with you. In the very first year after converting our curbside trash to automated collection, we spent $5.6 million and achieved a recycling rate of 11.5%. Where are we now, you might ask? The recently closed out curbside data for fiscal 13 shows that a recycling rate of 14.5% was achieved. Diverting an additional 1,000 tons of recyclables saved $75,000 in disposal costs this past year alone. Through a mass DEP grant, we were able to measure recycling participation rates, which we never knew before. The data showed only about a third of eligible households had green bins curbside. That meant that on each collection day, there were still 3,000 households not participating in waste diversion, and we want to change that. In March of this coming year, we'll complete our 5th year of automated collection. 5 years of continued improvement, 5 years of continued savings. We'll have paid off the investment in technology and the purchase of automated trash carts. After 7 years of carefully managing the annual solid waste budget and curbside program, the budget was reduced by $1 million. But perhaps more importantly, the city has achieved a reduction of 13,000 tons of trash, about 30% from pre-automated calculations, and we've doubled our recycling rate. I appear before you tonight to seek your continued support and trust in leading Lowell to the next phase of our curbside collection program. The new steps we're about to undertake have been more than a year in the making. Once again, we'll amortize the purchase of another 25,000 carts over 5 years. Once again, our goal, perhaps ambitious, is to double the recycling rate. And here's how we plan to get there. Some important contract updates, timelines, and outreach information. So bear with me for a moment. Starting in July, right up through November, the Solid Waste and Recycling Office and DEP staff has been participating in bi-weekly meetings and conference calls with Waste Management's implementation team. This has been good discussion, fine-tuning as we move forward. Starting today, in fact, the Solid Waste and Recycling hotline at DEP will be staffed 8 hours a day with volunteers, and we plan to continue this through January 15th. This Friday, as you've heard earlier from the citation from the mayor, we will celebrate America Recycles Day, an opportunity to get more people on board, an opportunity to kick off our campaign. This includes Council on Aging newsletter ads, which you have in front of you, citywide mailing, which is pending, a Lowell Life article and ad Lowell Sun, LTC, Khmer Post, WCAP, and much more. Starting just before Thanksgiving on the 25th, the the single-stream recycling carts will be shipped to Lowell. On November 27th, we'll have a lunchtime single-stream recycling workshop at the Senior Center. And towards the end of the month, we'll have a mailing citywide with a single-stream recycling brochure so residents know what to do when their carts arrive. The first weekday of December begins a 3-week period to roll out, assemble, and deliver the 25,000 wheeled carts. And remember, this cart is 5.5 times larger than the green bin and a whole lot simpler to use. The theme altogether now is exactly that. No more sorting, no more separating. Paper, bottles, and cans all go into the same container. What about the green bins? Keep them at home. We suggest that you leave it in the foyer, in the mudroom, in the garage. Collect your single-stream recycling, and then carry that container to your cart. Also, eligible seniors will automatically receive the smaller cart, and that was a request. In December, we're going to open up on the lowellrecycle.org website an online cart registration, custom collection calendars, and personalized alerts. The front page of your handout has a test website you can go to and visit your address to see how that works. In January, after the holiday, Waste Management will assist us in the bi-weekly collection of single-stream recycling, and that's going to be based on the current route day, your current trash day, and a lid color. Half of Monday, for example, will be blue lids, and half of Monday will receive green lids, and those 2 weeks will alternate every other week. In January, as part of the contract with Waste Management, we plan to open a Lowell Resource Recovery Center, or a drop-off yard. The exact location is still being hashed out. The hours of operation will be every other week, Saturday 9 to 3, and will be open to all Lowell residents and even small businesses, so another opportunity to reduce, reuse, and recycle. In January, we're going to use Bill Stanwood, my assistant, to enforce and make sure we target and discover and prevent trash and contamination that may devalue our single-stream recycling. A couple of things before I finish up. Things that stay the same. Your annual refuse fee won't change. Your weekly trash collection won't change. You'll still have the option, if you need it, to use the purple overflow bags. And weekly yard waste still will be April through November. 38 weeks is also unchanged. The fiscal 14 solid waste and recycling budget is now $5.1 million, almost $1.5 million less than we started in pre-automation. Through providing residents with the single-stream cart and assuring all curbside customers now have the means to participate, we anticipate achieving a recycling rate maybe in the low 30s. It may take a year to get there, but that's the goal, rivaling recycling rates of cities like Brockton and Cambridge. I will come back to your group, to this body, and present the 6-month report. So at the beginning of next fiscal year, I'll come back and let you know what our data shows. Thank you once again for putting your trust in me and lead the 4th largest city moving forward to an easy, convenient, affordable, and successful solid waste management program. Thank you.
Is there a schedule of when the people will know when their recycling is being picked up?
That will be
Or when they will
provided
be
in the citywide. It's going to be a multi-page brochure with a calendar for the blue carts and a calendar for the green carts. So that will be mailed to every eligible household.
So they'll actually have different color cards for different weeks?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so all of the carts are green. Half of them will have green lids and half of them will have blue lids. And based on the lid color, you can follow your calendar for your day of collection. And the website app that's in the test mode, you type in your address and it will automatically print out for you your day of collection, your alternating recycling, We've already populated it with the holidays, with Christmas tree drop-off, with hazardous waste, so there's a variety of improved communications that we can do with that application.
Councilor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Through you to Gunther. Mr. Willenstein, let me ask you, the cart's 96 gallon, right? And would the seniors get a 48 gallon?
The seniors would get the smaller of the two options, and that would be a 68 gallon.
68.
And part of the reason for always keeping the recycling cart one size larger than the trash is 60% of your household output should actually be in the recycling cart. And it now has to last for 2 weeks. So we do want folks to give it a try, the cart that arrives. We're not going to entertain any swaps while we're still out there trying to give everybody the first deliveries.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Williamson.
Thank you. Have a good night.
This is informational, so no votes needed. We do need a vote on item number 7, related to the public hearing. There's a report and recommendation from the planning board regarding the proposed zoning amendment extending TMU zoning district. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Next is the reports. Neighborhood Subcommittee, Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Tonight, the Neighborhood Subcommittee met. We had 2 items on the agenda. We had the Fowler Road Gardens, and second on the agenda was a discussion on new ideas for traffic solutions in the neighborhoods. The first item on the agenda, we had a discussion about plans for Mill City Grows to rent property off of Fowler Road at, I believe the address is 72 Fowler Road. So they presented their idea to the subcommittee about starting their gardens there. It's gonna take about 3 years to get it up to full potential. First year, they'll do I believe it was a half acre, and then the potential is the full 4 acres. We had people from the neighborhood there, and the discussion went well. People from the neighborhood had some questions, they were answered. Everybody seems to be in favor of this. It's a good use of the city land that will rent to Mill City Groves. So there was a motion by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Laurie, to send this, to refer it to the manager, to have the law department prepare the proper vote for Mill City Groves to use the land specified in the proposal. And that was accepted 3-0. Second on the agenda, we spoke about ideas for traffic solutions in the city, in the neighborhoods. We talked about blocked intersections, specifically over in Centerville, where we have a lot of problems on Bridge Street, getting from West 6th Street down to the lights at the VFW. So we had discussion about sending, actually, we had discussion about having the traffic engineer come back to us with a idea that's proposed about opening up the right-hand side of, I don't know the exact address, but making it 2-way traffic, two lanes open from 6 in the morning until 9 in the morning. So this would have people not park on that right-hand side of the road, allowing double lane of traffic into the VFW for those 3 hours to alleviate a lot of the traffic situation. So we're gonna get a report from the traffic engineer on that. We discussed about trying to enforce the parking situation on many corners where people park too close to the intersections. It's supposed to be 20-foot buffer, so people can actually see as they're approaching into the intersections. And then we talked about trying to come up with more solutions for speeding in the neighborhoods. And that's just going to be an ongoing discussion about trying to curb some of the speeding, make it safer for the families and children in the neighborhoods. So the second part was a report of progress, and the first part we'll wait to get the proper vote back from the manager's office.
Motion to accept as a report of progress by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Laurie. And that will accept the motion within the report at the same time. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. On the reports, Councilor Martin.
Thank you. I chair the council subcommittee on, I think it's called technology, but it encompasses LTC. And in my role as chair, I serve on the LTC board. There was a communication in our packet about the manager's appointees to the LTC board, but the council also has, I think in addition to the chairman, 5 other appointees, and those will be expiring this month. I don't think I got a notice similar to this, and I have not heard from any of the current council appointees whether they're willing to continue or not. But I think if people are aware of anybody who would like to serve on the LTC board as a council appointee, they should forward their name or expression of interest via email to the mayor's office or to me. And in the meantime, I will solicit feedback from the current council appointees, whether they're willing to serve. You know, we had comments earlier tonight about the council appointee to the Hunger Homeless Commission, and maybe we haven't done that, I don't know, but the council does not typically do this, and it's sort of an awkward process because there's no real formal procedure in place. So in the past few years, I've just spoken like this at a meeting, solicited input, and it's more a challenge to get people than it is a competition. So people that are interested, the people we have now are doing a very good job, and hopefully they're willing to continue. But if others are interested, they should certainly let their interest be known, and I'm expecting we'd be able to find a way for them to serve. Related to that, if I could, I know the LTC contract with the city has not been executed for the present fiscal year. I know there was an issue with some monies owed from the last fiscal year, which Mr. Moses is very helpful in resolving, and I know the LTC folks are appreciative of that. But they really need to get the revenue in the current year contract. So, and I know we probably don't have our contract with Comcast done yet, but maybe there's a way for us to do something contingent on funding or something like that. So if there's a way to do that, Mr. Fenton or Mr. Manager, if we could get that process moving.
We will move on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on reports? I had asked the clerk to schedule a finance subcommittee for December 3rd. We'll work it out with the zoning if that's a conflict. It was to discuss the fire time, overtime, and station closings report that was referred to the subcommittee. Councilor Martin.
And then just one other subcommittee announcement. I know typically on the second Tuesday, the Public Safety Subcommittee meets, but I know Councilor Leahy had this meeting scheduled, so we had planned to have our regular monthly meeting next week.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. All right, moving on with the agenda.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Mr. Manager?
If we could, and we can talk about this offline, but perhaps look at the Finance Subcommittee meeting December 10th rather than December 3rd.
That may work out to avoid a conflict with the zoning subcommittee.
Perhaps good for the zoning subcommittee, and there were issues in the administration for that date as well.
If there's no objection, I'll have the clerk schedule December 10th. Councilor Noon?
Mr. Vice Mayor, if that's the case, then can we publicly say that the zoning subcommittee meeting is December 3rd?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Councilor Leahy?
Was there a conflict with the November 22nd, is it?
Well, they said 3 weeks from now, so.
Oh, is that, okay.
That would be, I think, December 3rd, unless I'm wrong. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes, Councilor Kennedy.
It's 3 weeks to come back to the council. It doesn't
Oh.
mean that the subcommittee, they don't have to wait 3 weeks to meet. They can meet as soon as they can get a meeting together. That's right?
Then, if that's okay with the vice chair, then I change it to, November 26th. That is 2 weeks from today.
Mr. Clerk?
The issue that involves the 26th is that's the last Tuesday of the month, which is usually reserved for some special meetings, auditors, clerks, city managers, but that's at the will of people that want to call that meeting, so.
It's up to the council.
Either way, we'll have the finance on the 10th, the 3rd's available, and so, the last one in November may be available. Mr. Manager?
The other issue that the council talked about tonight was a meeting of the neighborhood subcommittee to discuss the parking issue out in the, off of, on Fletcher Street, the 60-day trial. So maybe that would make sense on the 3rd, and then still doing the zoning subcommittee on the 26th, but I'm not.
Well, unless, as Mr. Clerk said, we don't need to do the special meeting.
I think, right.
It's up to the council. I'm all fine with it.
All right, well, we have time to work out that one, so we can take that one offline if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, number 11, wire inspector, National Grid, underground electric to 2 locations onto property at 585 Merrimack Street. Motion to accept and adopt the accompanying order. A motion up by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
I'd be present on that one.
All right. Item number 12, also a wire inspector item, National Grid and Verizon New England pole location at 1 Perkins Street. Accept and adopt accompanying order by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. General petitions, we have one claim for property damage. Refer to the law department for
So moved, Mr.
report and
Chairman.
recommendation by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next is item 14, request of attorney Brian Occasion, representing Corbett Development Incorporated, ACC Realty, LLC, to discontinue public way known as Worcester Road. Mr. Occasion's here.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, Attorney Brian Occasion. My office address is 1 Courthouse Lane in Chelmsford, Mass. I represent Corbett Development, Inc., and here with me is Mr. Ed O'Neill, President of Corbett Development, Inc., and also ACC Realty, LLC, who are the property owners of the location at 658 Andover Street. Very briefly, 658 Andover Street is the oldest house on Andover Street. It sits in a National Historic Register piece of property. My clients have been attempting to develop this property since April of 2012. We have met with the planning board, the historic board. We have sat down with the law department. We have sat down with the Steve Stoll, the historic board, to go over all the aspects relative to the redevelopment of this property. We had a meeting May 1st of 2013 at Long Meadow Golf Club, which many of you attended, and we had many residents from the Belvedere neighborhood who had some concerns relative to the development of that property. We showed plans that had 5 houses and 4 houses on that parcel. Currently, there sits 1 house and a barn. After taking into those considerations, going back to the planning board, we had another neighborhood meeting on September 5th, and at that meeting, we developed a plan which was presented in the letter that was sent to you that had 3 lots on that property. The benefit of this plan is, one, in the 2 plans that we previously presented with the 5 houses and the 4 houses that called for the movement of the existing house at 658 Andover Street. This plan here, the house would remain where it is. Additionally, the other 2 lots would be conforming to the City of Lowell zoning code. They'd have the proper frontage. They would be within the character of the neighborhood and on Andover Street. The homes would be set back from Andover Street. The lot sizes are over 20,000 square feet, which in Belvedere is a giant lot. Finally, we had a meeting on October 29th at the actual property with more neighbors, and it was the consensus of all the neighbors involved that the discontinuance of Worcester Road, which abuts the property, if you're facing the house at 658 Andover Street, it runs in between 648 and 658, and it runs actually all the way from Andover Street all the way down almost to the Merrimack River. And by discontinuing this property, discontinuing this road, it would be the least invasive, it would allow for the least invasive development of this property. The neighborhood characteristic would be unchanged. That abandoned piece of property right now, which is overgrown and unkept, would have 2 executive-style homes. And it was the developer's opinion that the homes that would be built, 1, they're subject to historic board approval, and 2, they would be in the range of between $500,000 and $600,000 asking price. It would increase the value of the homes in the neighborhood, and it would be conforming to the rest of the lots. The neighbors to the left of the property, who this development would probably affect the most, we spoke to them and they said, our lawyer suggested to us that we get the road abandoned. And that's what we're here asking, that the road be discontinued and that you schedule a hearing pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 82, Section 32A. Notify all the relevant parties and have a hearing before the council where anyone who wishes to speak in favor may, and anyone that wishes to speak in opposition may also. I know a concern that the city solicitor raised when Council Mercier had brought this petition before was that this would, under the Massachusetts general laws, when you discontinue a road, the parties abutting each road get ownership interest into the center line, which would be an additional 25 feet. Which would increase the parcel size that the developer was purchasing, and that it would be possible that the developer may try to turn this around and not proceed with the 3-house plan, but use the subdivision control law to build more houses. I tell you, and I make this representation to you, that we're here for the long haul. We've been here since April trying to develop this property, and we're not going to abandon this road and then turn it around to some other entity. These are the 3 lots that we would like to build. It's in character with the neighborhood. The Bergerons to the right are in favor of this proposal. The parents to the left are in favor of these proposals, and there's been no objections from any of the abutters on the Surrey Lane side. And we just ask that you hold a hearing to discontinue the road. And if there are any questions, we're more than happy and willing to answer them.
All right, we'll need a motion to refer to the Law Department to draft proper vote and procedure. A motion by Councilor Mercier, second by Councilor Noon. Any discussion?
Nope.
Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Finn.
Thank you. The only concern I have, the only question that I have, has to do with to what extent are you asking to abandon Worcester Road? Only to Surrey Lane, or all the way down to the river?
Well, I would think that if you would abandon it all the way to the river, that would prevent any future development of that road. I think it would benefit the neighbors, not only on not only the neighbors that directly abut it on Andover Street and Surrey Lane, but I believe it's River Cliff that goes all the way down there, and all those people who have a paper street running through their backyard will now have ownership interest in that property and prevent any future development of that road. But for our purposes, we only own to Surrey Lane. So if that's all that gets abandoned, that would satisfy us. But as a neighbor and resident of the city of Lowell, I would think the proper thing to do would be to abandon all the way down to Andover Street, or excuse me, the river.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Well,
Councilor
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question to the solicitor on this?
Sure.
I mean, the request from the petitioner, then, Mr. Solicitor, is just to Surrey Lane. So is it going to be the city's determination whether that's the rest of that right-of-way is abandoned or not?
Well, certainly it would be looked at. The council represented to the council that he wanted to have Worcester Road abandoned, and then he made reference to the fact that it extended down to the river. And that's why I asked the question of, since he's really only interested in that portion which extends from Andover Street to Surrey Lane, was he asking that the entire street be abandoned, the entire road?
I think you raise a good point, and I think the council needs to maybe go on record that while we are doing this, should we extend that abandonment, the entire length of Worcester Road to protect the rest of the homes that could be affected by it? I think it makes some sense, but I don't know if that's, what form are you going to come back for the public hearing?
Well, we would look at it. Certainly, the process would involve notice to each and every one of the abutters on both sides of that existing Worcester Road all the way down, if that was the intent or the wish of the council. The council certainly could have its input as to, it's being referred to the law department, but, what is the wish of the council in regards to this?
Well, right. While I know we voted to do that, but could we at the same time I think it'd be wise to get a report from Division of Planning and Development, if that makes some sense. And to me, I think it makes some sense, but I think it's important to get that input from Planning and Development
So
before this comes back for a public hearing.
a motion to also send this for a report from Planning and Development.
Right.
And I'll just say that if this came out to be doing the whole road, you could always reduce it during the public hearing, but it couldn't be extended. So
Right.
Only doing part of it can't be extended, but if you did it all, you could always reduce it to part.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion to refer this item also to the planning board for a recommendation, second by Council Noon. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we're on to motions by Councilor Mercier. Request city manager have the law department print a list of all lawsuits pending against the city. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, we learned that there was a lawsuit that went on to be appealed, and the initial jury award was $165,000, and that was in Superior Court. And it seems that in 2006, 7 years ago, the city appealed the case, and for all those years, the interest and legal fees multiplied to the tune of $642,000 because the appeals court upheld the decision of the Superior Court. Now, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I, for one, had no idea that this case was pending. I don't recall ever being aware that this was developing behind the scenes. I didn't know anything about it. I don't know if my colleagues knew, but I didn't know. So there are many questions to be asked with this scenario. So let me start by asking, through you, Mr. Vice Mayor, to the manager. Mr. Manager, who decides when to appeal? Whose decision is that?
I believe under the city charter, that would be the city manager's decision,
That would be your decision.
the city manager,
Right, that's you, right?
currently, right?
So you decided to appeal this?
No.
There's timeline, this was the prior city manager.
This was the prior city manager.
So then what happened? How did this, so then it went on to 2011?
Correct.
Well, why does it take from 2006 to 2011 before they come to a judgment? What created that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check with the city solicitor's office on all of the various steps along the way. But it was decided back in, I think, February or March of 2006, before I came on as city manager, to appeal this. And once all the filings went through and it made its way to the appeals court and was argued, and then the appeals court considered it and made their decision, all that time took place. But
So another question I have is, why would this council not have any input as to when and if a lawsuit should be appealed? It's solely your decision, and we as a council have no say in this or no input as to what we would direct you to do, because after all, Mr. Manager, you work for this council, so I thought we could advise you in executive session or something of that sort.
well, I certainly think that that's something that's worthwhile. I think having meetings to talk about litigation makes sense. The charter is the charter, and again, Councilor, you're making it appear that I'm the one who made this call, and I'm not the one who made this call. But decisions are made by the executive on a regular basis as to whether to settle a case, to accept the verdicts, to challenge the verdicts. It's done in consultation with the lawyers of the city. In this particular case, I'm not sure of all the facts that were involved in the decision that was made back in the winter of 2006. I probably, as I've said, I think in a correspondence to the council, I think the city manager probably made the right decision. Now, hindsight's always 20/20, and looking back now to the decision that was made by then manager Cox, it's easy now to say, well, it shouldn't have been appealed. But I know that, for instance, we have other cases that we do appeal and we do prevail, and we win those. Now, I think some sitting down, as you know, I've met with the council in executive session on various occasions to talk about litigation and to bring the council up to speed on what we're doing, and I think that makes sense to have that. Ultimately, the decision legally may rest with the city manager, but I think having some discussion about those makes sense.
So why are we as a council only told about some and not all of the city's pending lawsuits? Do we pick and choose what you want to tell us?
Well, again, I'm not sure why I'm being put on the spot here for this. If you weren't aware of this in 2006, I can't help you on that.
I understand that, but this is why I'm saying this, because I want to know what took place between 2006 and 2011 that brought it up to this point, because I think from what and I can't speculate, but I'm wondering if in fact there was a decision to pay, but we didn't have the money at the time. I don't know, could you check that out?
Yeah.
Because
we can get you some information on that, but no, the decision was made to appeal in 2006, and it just worked its way through the legal system until that decision was made, that verdict was made. We did work a payment plan to pay a portion of it in one fiscal year and carry the next into the next fiscal year, but that didn't change the amount owed. That just changed the process of making the payments. So.
Well, I would like to know if at some point between 2006 and 2011, an offer was established and we didn't have the money, so it just sat there and went into 2011 with a judgment.
Not to my knowledge, but I'll follow up on that.
All right, well, check that one out.
But I think it's just a matter that the judgment was made in 2011, and
I thought something happened in between while you were a city manager that you didn't notify us about, but.
I'm sure you'd like that to be the case, Counselor,
Well,
but
I
that's
don't know that.
not
We'll
my
see.
recollection.
I would like a list of all the pending lawsuits against the city. And maybe there needs to be some changes in these procedures so that the administration and each and every counselor from here on in, council, not just councilors, but the next council as well, from here on in can be on the same page when it concerns pending lawsuits and our strategy and our input. So I'm asking a further question. How many lawsuits are pending?
I don't have that
all
number.
right.
But if I could, on the previous idea that you had, I think it makes sense for the council and the manager to sit down with the law department, probably twice a year, to go over all the litigation. That's generally, something like that is often done in communities.
How many of the lawsuits have been appealed and lost altogether?
I don't have that number.
But I'm going to give you my list so you can check it off and check it out. This is the list, and I'd like some answers to these questions. Is that okay?
Sure, we'll
All right.
pass those on
So
to
you
the law
might
department.
forget what I asked for, so that's why I got a copy
Give me that
for
list,
you.
and what we'll do is we'll go through those and get a report back to the council.
Right.
As soon as the law department can sit down and go through those.
Because I'm bringing this motion up because it seemed, whether it be the radio or in the paper or whatever, that this council was not aware of this, and it was our fault that this happened, and I can't be at fault if I didn't know what was taking place. I didn't know anything about it, and
I agree, Counselor, and again, if I obviously assumed that back in 2006 you were told about this case.
I don't recall.
Or in 2002 when it was initially filed.
Well, I should think check out between 2006 and 2011, and we should have been notified something then. And I think it stemmed from the fact that we didn't have the money in the budget. So let's check that out.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, I think that Councilor Mercier's motion is a good one. It seems to me that I remember that some time ago, we did have a meeting with the city solicitor in executive session to go over all of the litigation that was pending. But I do think that once we get the list, that we should have a similar meeting shortly after that. And I think that your suggestion that we do it twice a year is a good one as well. I mean, that's a big hit for the city to take, and if there's other hits that the city if there's other exposure for us that's a big amount of money, then it would be good to know that, or at least in maybe help in how we proceed from there. Anyways, if we can do that twice a year, as you suggested, I think that's a good idea, and I think that we should do it shortly after we get the list from that Councilor Mercier has asked for.
I agree.
All those in favor of the motions? Councilor Elliott?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a good motion, Councilor Mercier, and I'm going to support it. As previous speakers had mentioned, and I had contacted you, Mr. Manager, when I had heard this on the radio about this particular case. And so I guess my question is, when we didn't know anything about it, or we didn't learn about it, question is, why weren't we notified when the city lost the appeal in 2011 that that this was the case? I think that's perhaps the point that we're getting at.
Okay.
And it's not the blame game, but when you were here in 2011, and the council, or at least the council was not made aware of that we lost the appeal.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm going to presume that somebody in the law department between 2005 and 2011 knew what was going on, or are we saying for a 6-year time frame there were no communications at all whatsoever? Nobody was tracking this appeal?
It was going through the appeal process, and they were working the case.
So they were working the
believe
case, so
attorney-
somebody knew what was going on. But
they were
nobody
involved.
notified the council, and it's a significant amount of money.
Correct.
Which is the point, which is, I think, is the larger issue. How many more lawsuits are out there
Sure.
of similar nature, whether they appeal or not, that we should be made aware of. And I think it does raise a bigger question. Who makes under the charter, you make the decision.
The city manager.
I said, yeah, the city manager makes the decision, and you're the city manager, so you make the decision to move forward, and it's a financial issue, and then certainly in this case, the decision was made, and could there have been, at any point in time, an opportunity to stop the appeal, or knowing that fees and, the cost was just, escalating significantly. So I think moving forward, it is a good idea to find out, the point is, when we lost the appeal, we still were not notified by you, and that's a concern. So I support meeting every couple of, or whenever necessary on any particular
Sure.
cases to get input from the council, because we are the ones that have to appropriate this money when it comes budget time, and it's taxpayer money. So I think it's important to, moving forward, that we do have a procedure in place to meet, discuss, and get input.
I agree, and again, Counselor, I obviously was under the assumption that, and I guess it was a false assumption, that the council, certainly the members that were here in 2006, knew about this case.
Okay, did we know about it in 2011, Mr. Manager? I think that's the point. You never told us that we lost the appeal again, so I think that's the point that we're coming back to, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Request city manager produce short-term plan to address increased violence in the city. Second by Councilor Mercier. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I want to file this motion, Mr. Manager, to follow up on pledges that I made certainly during the campaign as well. To the people in the city, I have heard them loud and clear that violent crime continues, and even in the last several weeks. And I think it's important to have. So, I understand that it does take some time to bring new officers on. We had that discussion, I believe, in one of the public safety subcommittee meetings. So, and they're in the academy, and there are 11 new officers coming. But I do think, in the meantime, that we need to have a plan from you and the interim superintendent. I do know that, again, at the public safety subcommittee meeting, there was discussion about adding additional patrols using overtime from the 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock period. But I also know that, the increase in crime is not just happening during that particular period, whether, during the day, robberies, breaking and entering, a number of increases. So I think it's important to put this motion forward to, ask what the plan is in the short term, because I think, the public wants action on this, and I didn't want to let more time go without being able to provide them with answers to, what is the city council doing, what is the city doing to address this. I know Council Martin just mentioned that there's a public safety subcommittee meeting. Hopefully that would be a good opportunity, or at least within a week's time, for you to be able to, you and the superintendent, to bring a plan as to, this is what we're doing. We hear the public, we hear the neighborhood leaders, and this is what we are doing in the short term, and then, so that's the motion.
Mr. Manager.
I'm happy to do this, and I think in many respects we've already enunciated this, but I think a more consolidated, comprehensive presentation to the council will address this, or will reiterate that, and we will be prepared to do that.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. It being after 10 o'clock, we have one more motion, but we'll need to have a motion to suspend Rule 5. Motion by Councilor Noon, seconded by Counsel Leahy. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy. Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie. Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Donza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Okay. Last motion of the evening by Counsel Elliott. Request city manager develop a long-term plan to hire additional police officers, seconded by Counsellor Noon. Counsellor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you to my fellow colleagues. I know we're running up against the 10 o'clock hour, but I will be brief. We have 16 fewer police officers since 2009, and I do think it's important for us to take a look at adding or adding more police officers for a number of reasons. Again, sort of taking off from my prior, the prior motion of a short term, knowing that it takes some time to get officers in and out of the academy, I do think it's important that we have more police officers for a number of reasons. One, it does lead to improved community policing, Mr. Manager, and to me, the public made it clear that they want more police officers on the streets. We have gunshots going through, bedrooms where there are children. We're finding, scores and many casings on the streets, gun casings. So it just seems that we are putting a short-term plan in place, and the longer-term plan is to put, more officers. I know we received a grant, but to me, there's no substitute for officers on the street. I think we need a surge of boots on the ground, if you will, to send a message, to send a strong message to those criminals in the neighborhoods or downtown on the streets that we are not going to tolerate that. So I do believe that there is a need. I'm hoping that you'll come forward with the plan for more officers that without a tax increase. Tonight's news of, free cash of $4 million, Mr. Manager, I think is a perfect opportunity to, it's good to have money in the bank. I like to save money, and it's good to save money, but at the same time, I think we do have to invest in public safety, to invest more into public safety. So that's the motion, and thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Councilor, I welcome the opportunity to have the police department work on this with me in developing the long-term plan. I do concur that unfortunately we've seen as I've pointed out, we've seen a dramatic cut in the number of in the amount of federal and state money that we have. In fact, we were turned down for a grant to add additional staffing. Frankly, because we had a lower crime rate than many of our peer communities, and so the state opted to give money elsewhere. But given the cutback in that, we've had to absorb all of those officers ourselves. But I do think that it makes sense to put more officers on the street paid for by the city, and we will be, it's our intention, my intention, to include that in next year's budget. You can't really I've already authorized within the current spending, I've authorized the department to bring on 4 to 5 transfers, lateral transfers. The free cash number, I think, is a good amount of money to do a number of different things that I'm working on a proposal, and one of them is adding more money into the police department to help pay for those 4 to 5 transfers. As you recall, I said that was something we were working on in a recent memo. In fact, you referenced whether that would include a tax increase, and I indicated no, not this year, but perhaps next year. And I know that tied in well to the political season as well. But no, next year there will need to be a tax increase, and the free cash will go towards helping us for this year to be able to afford to bring those 4 to 5 officers on. But again, lateral transfers are difficult because they require, one, you don't want to get, you want to get the best officers, and that means you have to lure them out of the other departments, but they also need the consent of those other departments to actually leave to come to the city of Lowell or to any other community. So it's not an easy process. But you know, we are working on the plan for the free cash to utilize that for a number of different purposes. But I think the long-term plan to increase staffing in the police department is one that makes sense and one that we will be working on.
Right. Mr. Manager, I'm not saying this is going to be easy to get new officers. I understand it takes time for recruits, which is why I think it is wise to get a short-term plan and the long-term plan. But people, residents, taxpayers, they want action, and you know, we owe it to them to do that. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying there's a whole lot of options to get more police officers in a timely manner. But whatever it takes, I think we have to exhaust these options, and you know, whether it's NEMLEC for more officers, peak or off peak, or you know, I know the state police. I know we're working with many other agencies, but the answer to people at home is that we hear you and we're acting swiftly. So,
absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Very quickly, even as a suggestion with the upcoming budget, if you could give us the opportunity, if there's any savings in consolidating departments. I just had another idea, but it's late. But any ideas that will save us money, give us the opportunity to, you know, put that money towards public safety if the body wishes to. But we have had motions and suggestions over the past few months that we might consolidate some departments with the school department, any sales of cars that we're not using, vehicles, anything like that. But so that wouldn't necessarily mean that a tax increase could pay for these new offices, but maybe savings in other departments, we could use that money to pay for police officers.
Mr. Manager.
I think, you know, that's certainly what we've done. Any ability to do what we've done, including no tax increases, resulted from savings. Savings in energy, savings in health insurance, savings in departments through efficiencies. Have all been done through savings. And we continue to seek out more ways to save. The idea of consolidating departments, that's something certainly I think is a great idea in many communities, including the city of Lowell. Keep in mind that savings that you necessarily get from the school department, and Council, you're, as a former school committee member, I'm sure you're well aware of this, it pretty much requires that you put that money back into the schools, though, because you have that minimum spending that you have to do. So if you save money by transferring it over into the, by sort of shrinking it down, it just means there's more money, pretty much just means there's more money available in the school department. And you know, selling assets is always a great thing to do to improve our cash flow, but it really does, it's only one-time money. So we make $30,000 selling some cruisers, that funds not even half a police officer for 1 year. So I just want to, again, I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on any of these things. I just want, and I know the council probably understands this, as Councilor Elliott said, he knows it's not easy, but I want the public, when they're hearing this, to understand these things aren't, you know, the sense that we can somehow just go out and hire a police officer today, it is impossible. It's not like hiring you know, any number of other occupations. It's a little bit more complex, and I think the public doesn't always get that clarity of information through the meetings or through the media. And I think we need to make everyone aware of the steps that need to be taken along the way. But I couldn't agree more about the need for more police officers or the need for look for savings.
Okay. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.